Ahoy, everyone, and welcome to the Intrepid Filmographers, and welcome to podcasting's biggest night. It is the inaugural Intrepid Filmographers Awards. Nick and I are going to be going down our lists of our favorite movies and people involved with movies in the year of 2024. Tonight is obviously, if you're listening to this the night the show drops, the Oscars are tonight, so we're coordinating it with that. We are going to do our own categories. We are going to do our own nominees and just talk about really the movies and the people who made the movies that we loved in 2024. It's really a night to celebrate and a time to celebrate the movies. Nick, how are you doing tonight, my co-host?
I'm doing great.
Do you have a song prepared for us?
I do. It's right around the corner. I'll be right back.
I was trying to think quickly of like a Billy Crystal-esque, a parody for one of my nominees, but I just can't do it right now. It's not coming to me. I do have a little. It's not champagne. It's Prosecco, but I got a
close enough. Yeah,
Italian champagne. I got a little Italian champagne.
Yeah,
really. To a movie that we'll be talking about tonight in honor of Conclave and the very.
I was going to say, is that an Aldo Bellini?
It's an Aldo. I should have had an Aldo Bellini.
Right.
Where is my peach puree into this bubbly?
I was not kidding when I texted you the other night. I just saw Conclave. I'm glad I did, and that is like my favorite name. That's my favorite name of a character in a movie since Ryan Gosling in The Nice Guys. He is called... Oh, shit. Brian made fun of me so much for liking this name so much. I'm going to have to look it up. I don't remember it now, but it's a great fucking name. And I will use Aldo Bellini as an alias for something. I feel like I could pass for an Aldo Bellini.
Absolutely, yes.
And like, I kind of wish my actual name was Aldo Bellini.
You got a little touch of the tooch. You got to start making cooking videos where you wait a couple seconds when the camera starts rolling and you go, are we going? And then you make some delicious looking sandwich or something or whatever. Love the tooch.
Love the tooch.
I don't know if he's going to come up. We haven't shared our nominations with each other tonight, so it's going to be a little bit of a surprise when we go through them. We're going to be going through, categories we'll be going through. Cinematography, score, adapted and original screenplay, best supporting actor, best supporting actress, best actress, best actor, director, and best picture, which is basically going to be a list of our favorite movies of the year, and we'll do like our number one each of our movie of the year. I don't know what your list was that you put together, Nick, as far as the amount of movies you have for best picture, but we'll find out together.
Okay.
So actually, I just changed my list after last night, and so I'm just putting something together here. Okay, here we go. So, do we want to start with one of the, I guess really our only really technical award, which is cinematography, or do we want to do what the Oscars does and go like best supporting actress or actor to kick it off with a big one? What do you think, Nick?
I think they do that. I never liked that choice. I always thought the show should build over the course of the night, and particularly when there's when there's one of those supporting actor or actress categories where it's contentious or there's just a lot of really good nominees, to bang that out first, I feel is kind of anticlimactic, because sometimes some of those later awards, you basically know who's going to win. So yeah, I think we should work our way up to the categories.
All right. So, I think the reason they do that is because they want some people to watch at the beginning.
I understand why they do it. I'm just saying, I am like you and me are the kind of folks that are going to watch the entire show, no matter what, whether it's good or not. It's often not good, but we're, for some reason, just when we thought we were out, they pull us back in, like Michael Corleone in the very best Godfather movie, Godfather Part 3.
Of course, yes.
I'm kidding about that. Sorry, I can't even joke about that.
I have faith. The show will probably, anybody listens to this, the show will either have happened or is about to happen. I have faith in Conan O'Brien as the host. That's a cool idea. That's one of the coolest things they've done in a long time. Right?
I agree. I'm surprised it took them this long to make that very smart and very obvious choice.
Yeah. So we'll see how that all shakes out.
So you weren't pushing for Kevin Hart?
I wasn't pushing for Kevin Hart. I was pushing for John Mulaney. That's who I really wanted to do it. But I don't think he has much interest in doing it, because I think he knows the gig is kind of thankless, right? And he's got enough parasocial shit that is his life for a very long time. So.
Oh, you think he was relapse if he had to do the Oscar show and then go to the after party? That's
mean there's a list of things that people get on him about that he doesn't need to add another thing to that, right? That's what I'm talking about. Anyway, so let's go through our nominees for best cinematography. Nick, do you want to go first?
I want you to go first because I haven't written down the cinematographers' names on all of these. So, and I
Okay.
only have 3.
Okay. I have 5. I'll read my 5.
Okay.
So my 5 are Eric Yu for I Saw the TV Glow, Aaron Morton for The First Omen, Jarin Blashki for Nosferatu. This is I apologize for how I'm going to say this name. Saimabahu Mukadipram from Challengers, and Greg Fraser from Dune Part 2.
I think it's Grieg Fraser, actually.
Grieg? Is it really Grieg? Do they call him Grieg?
I don't know, but that's what his name is spelled like. Because
I
that's
know,
one
but
of the
I
ones
have
do
a
have
cousin who spells his name like that, and we call him Greg.
He's just
So,
Greg? Okay.
Yeah.
I learned something new today. I want to, before we proceed with this too much, I just want to get this out there. I'm not trying to be defensive. I've seen a lot less movies than you have this year, and you're gonna, I really still want to see I Saw the TV Glow, and that very likely could have been, in this category and maybe some others. I really limited myself to, not with that one, because I really do want to see that one, and that does seem like a movie that I'd be really into, but, with limited time, this year was the one where I really, because of this show, I was like, I want to see all the Oscar movies. And, I started that process and I was like, you know what? I feel I'm comfortable at this point in my life, not bothering with stuff that I don't think I'm going to like. And I know that's a terrible way to be, and on this show, I think I've done a good job of like, one of the things I like about doing a show like this is to, sometimes I can't really think of anything that comes to mind yet, but we will get to some movies where it's like, I am not going to be interested at all in them, but I'm going to do them for the sake of the show. And that's going to be the film watching that I do for that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When it's a choice for me to watch like some, 70s exploitation flick that is on like every Facebook group that I follow, or some Oscar movie that I'm probably not going to like, I'm going to go with the 70s exploitation flick. So yeah. And then sometimes I just don't have time to fit in as many like stuff that I am interested in as I want to. So that's why I haven't seen I Saw the TV Glow, but I'll bet it's a really cool looking movie.
It's a very cool looking movie. And I'll talk a little bit more about like in depth on some of them after you do your nominees, Nick. And yeah, I'll say this. I saw a fair amount of movies this year. I saw 42 new releases from 2024. So I didn't see 100, or whatever. And there are definitely movies that I didn't get to see from last year before we did the show that I either would still like to see, or there's a couple that I will watch before. We're recording this on the Wednesday before the Oscars. I will watch before Sunday.
We do still have time. Yeah, which is nice.
I will watch The Brutalist and I will watch Nickel Boys before we get to Sunday, or we get to Sunday night, I should say.
See, I was going to mention The Brutalist. Because you said I Saw the TV Glow, I mentioned that one because that's one I definitely do want to see. The Brutalist is kind of my white whale this year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even, at this point, I'm kind of in the thick of the spring semester, and I was going to watch it over winter break, and just the thought of finding 3 plus, 3.5 to 3 hours, 40 minutes, whatever it is. I can't even fathom like a time or a place where I could sit down and watch that movie. And it really bothers me because I feel like that movie's kind of made for me. And
I think so too.
I don't know, like someone else is going to have to see it and say, this movie's made for you. And then I'll say, great, I can't wait to see it someday.
So let me go down. I'll actually list really quick the movies that I really wanted to see this year that I didn't get to before we recorded this. Love Lies Bleeding.
Oh, okay. I did see that one.
Oh, you did see that one? Mm-hmm. Cool.
That'll come up later tonight.
Okay, great. Love Lies Bleeding, Abigail, Megalopolis, Cuckoo, We Live in Time, Heretic, I'm Still Here, My Old Ass, Rebel Ridge, Queer, Thelma, Baby Girl, All We Imagine Is Light, Hard Truths, Janet Planet, Problemista, History Daughter, September 5, The Order, Piano Lesson, and Red Rooms are really the ones I really wanted to try to get to. And those like 10 or so movies that I just listed or whatever that I just won't end up getting to.
There's quite a few on that list that I would, Red Rooms, definitely.
Yeah, Red Rooms is one there are these categories in my mind, and I think, Nick, you're probably the same way because you often will, you look at the Oscar list and you'll go like, I'm going to try to see as many of these movies as possible so I can feel informed, or I can be angry and feel like I'm rightfully angry or whatever. And then once you get past the Oscar ceremony, those movies disappear into some sort of ether, and you're like, I'm never going to watch.
Yeah.
Like, Empire of Light, or whatever, over a couple of years ago. I'm never going to watch those kind of movies, right? I'm never going to watch The Queen after the Oscar season is over, right? And there are definitely ones like that for me in this, season. I didn't name any of those here because those are Like things like Red Rooms, I'm absolutely gonna watch, stuff like that. So I'm excited to get to those movies eventually. But those are the movies that I didn't see. But we're talking about the movies we did see. Nick, what are your 3 cinematography nominations?
I actually have 4, so
Oh,
that's
okay, here we go.
something. Forgive me. One cinematographer I still don't have the name of, but just for starters, Andres Arochi for Long Legs.
Oh, good one. Good nomination. That was on like my honorable mentions for sure.
Okay, I may be bringing that up again, but not really for awards categories. But
Okay.
I want to talk a little more about Long Legs.
Yeah.
Interesting movie. Dune 2, Greg Fraser.
Mm-hmm.
Jaron Blaschke for Nosferatu.
Good one.
And whoever it was that shot Conclave, because that is a really beautifully shot movie, and I am sorry to have not.
It must be the person who shot All Quiet on the Western Front, I'm guessing.
I can easily look it up.
Stéphane.
That doesn't make for good.
Stéphane Fontaine.
Okay, I'll take your word.
I'm assuming they shot All Quiet on the Western Front because that was Berger's previous movie. But actually, I'm looking at it, they did not shoot it.
Another Oscar nominee that I haven't seen yet that I really want to, from like 3-4 years ago.
That was from 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. Then I'm not so far behind the curve on it. I'm happy about that.
That was the year that Top Gun was nominated. It was that year. Because that year I was doing a very short-lived movie podcast with ghost of the podcast, Brian Verderosa, and we watched all of the Best Picture nominees for that podcast. And I watched that one last of all of them. Anyway, so really good nominees, Nikki. That was all 4, right? That you mentioned? Quickly, I just want to say, my winner is Greg Fraser for Dune Part 2. I think,
and mine is as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Fraser is just one of the best ones working right now. I mean, I think both the Dune movies, obviously, the Batman, I think is one of the best looking blockbusters of the last, 15 years probably. And Dune Part 2 is just an astounding looking movie. Obviously, he's working with a brilliant visual stylist in Villeneuve, but Fraser there are very few times where a cinematographer rises to the level where people online will say things like, oh man, Villeneuve said Dune Messiah isn't coming out till 2026. That means, or 2027, isn't shooting till 2026. So that means Fraser can shoot the Batman Part 2. Like if he couldn't, they should just wait for him to be able to shoot it. Like that kind of thing. Like people don't say that about many cinematographers. People don't know many cinematographers' names. He's just working at the top of his game.
Yeah, I agree. And I love the first Dune movie as well. And I remember seeing that in the theater and thinking, how could anything look better than this?
Mm-hmm.
And I would argue that Dune 2 actually does look better. And, there are things, it's not just a copy of the first movie, right? In terms of cinematography, although there's a lot of continuity there and it's not shot in a completely different way, I thought there were things that just had sort of a different feel and a different look to them. And, it's every frame of painting. There are things in this movie that you could just isolate a frame and just stare at it. And I've definitely done that with both Dune movies. I was so impressed. I thought because the story of Part 2 kind of covers a lot more ground, is a lot more complicated, I kind of figured that because the first movie was around every corner, it's like, here's something I'd never seen before and it looks amazing. Yeah. And somehow they're able to continue that into the second and, just some shots that I think about all the time. I don't know if I have a favorite image, but maybe the bird's eye view of the triangular shaped arena.
Oh, it's a good one. I mean, mine is right at the beginning when those Harkonnen soldiers...
I know what you're going to say here when they drop out of the ski. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and they're like floating up to that second level or whatever of the dunes. Just breathtaking looking movie.
I mean, it's art movie cinematography in a science fiction blockbuster, and I just love everything about that.
Yeah, I'll say just go to my other nominees, and some of them we share, at least one of them we share. The Nosferatu filmmaker, cinematographer Jaron Blaschke, really, it's testament to how great Dune 2 looks that Jaron Blaschke wouldn't be my winner. Any other year, they would have been my winner. Talk about every frame a painting. That movie is just you can feel every single moment, composed and framed and lit in such a specific way to evoke a specific emotion. And it's just one of those feats. And I'm sure Eggers is a very demanding, much like Villeneuve was probably a very demanding director, right? And so to have someone who can fulfill that vision in that way and mostly bring a lot of their own kind of prowess to it, I think is really impressive.
And it's very classical cinematography. I mean, I guess I'm kind of a traditionalist when it comes to the way movies look. I mean, not that I don't enjoy something that is innovative and a lot of handheld camera and a lot of quick cutting and a more modern sort of style. But when a movie takes it, like Dune 2 to me, it's like it reminds me like a Jodorowsky movie, which he was supposed to do Dune at one point. I do like, the kind of throwbacks to those eras. And I feel like Nosferatu, obviously, it owes a lot to Murnau and the way the original film looks, and really pays homage to that, the carriage scene and all of that stuff, the inside of the castle, but kind of puts it is a modern looking movie that does have a very classical sort of underpinning about it. And I mean, that's another one where I was like, could I be more visually impressed by this? And then it just kind of it outdoes itself around every corner, just like Dune does. So that would, I think in almost any other year, that would have been my choice. Conclave is a beautifully shot movie. And I will say, having finally seen it, that movie is atmospheric in ways that I was not expecting it to be at all. I felt like I was sequestered and living in the Vatican in that, hotel for cardinals, whatever it's called. I don't know if they ever named that location.
I don't know either.
But the way the camera moved through that place and the way it was shot, what I thought was just incredibly immersive. I thought that whole movie, we'll talk about it more as we go on, I thought that was all incredibly immersive. And Longlegs for me, very distinctive look. Obviously, he's messing around with aspect ratios and stuff like that. I just, I have my issues with that movie. It's not on my best picture of the year. I wanted it to be. I would say that's about 3/4 of an all-time classic genre film. And I thought, those of us who really like genre films, there was a lot of really great stuff this year, and some that I still need to see. Like I saw the TV Glow. But Longlegs, very distinctive look, very cool use of, like I said, the aspect ratio, the different film stocks, and, classical in a lot of ways also. And just the atmosphere and the immersiveness there from the cinematography was pretty incredible. So I like those both a lot.
I mean, the best thing about Longlegs is the way it looks in many ways. The one undeniable thing, I should say, is how it looks, right? It's a beautiful looking film. It's funny because I think we talk about Longlegs in our Hannah. Was it Hannah, the last real episode we recorded of the show?
I think so.
I think we talk about Longlegs at the end of that show, and that episode will come out in like 2 months. Where it's just so funny that we're talking about it. People are going to be like, "This is a very weird like bookend of those two conversations." But really, absolutely. So my other nominees, Challengers, just a ridiculously good-looking movie, and in a different way than the other movies that we've been mentioning. Right? It's not this sort of classical cinematography in the same way, but the way that the tennis is shot is just some of the best I've ever seen, probably the best I've ever seen in a movie, the way the tennis is shot. It's just really exciting and really wonderful, and it's just got a great look and feel to it. The First Omen, which I think it could have been very easy for the movie to kind of just go on this idea of just looking like a 70s movie, and it doesn't. It has a very different vibe and feel, and there's just some unbelievable shots and compositions in that movie.
I'll be honest, I forgot all about The First Omen. I really like that movie, and that would have certainly been on my list also if I remembered how cool that looked.
And then I saw the TV Glow, Eric. You just, again, even less sort of like classical looking movie than any of the movies I've spoken about, but it just has some unbelievable lighting. First of all, like some of the lighting stuff in it is just crazy, and really just some of the ways that the shots communicate the inner feelings of the characters, like it's really, really impressive. A movie that really blew me away. And of course, I'm going to talk about a lot more, so I don't want to waste too much time talking about it now. But again, both our winners are Greg Fraser for Dune 2, but a really strong year. I could have, it was tough when I was putting this 5 together to really narrow it down. But because I could have easily put Furiosa on there, or Conclave was definitely a contender for it as well. Alien Romulus is a contender for it as well for me. I mean, I'm a big fan of I think if you can shoot horror really well, it's really, really impressive. So anyway, that's best cinematography. Let's go on to the next category. Best score. You don't have any score ones, right, Nick? We talked about this before, and I didn't really.
No, I have a pick, but I don't have nominees. So
you don't have nominees. Okay,
you go ahead and go first.
So I'll do my nominees. Volker Bertelmann for Conclave, really excellent score. Chris Bowers for The Wild Robot. Alex G for I Saw the TV Glow. Hans Zimmer for Dune Part 2. And I'll just put it out in front right now because it's not even close. My winner is Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor for their Challenger score. Truly an unbelievable score. And I dare anyone to listen to Match Point, the track called Match Point, and not just get crazy hyped up because it is an amazing track. Just want to, it's a fully electronic score, which is not usually, it's not totally usually their thing all the time, but it's like really unbelievably good. Like it's one of my favorite of their scores, and they're one of my favorite, scoring teams. So I'm not good at talking about music the way I can talk about movies, but it just blew me away.
Yeah, I agreed. I really like, I haven't seen Challengers,
Mm.
so I'm sure it might have actually been my pick as well had I seen it. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and it sounds like he's getting Nine Inch Nails back together, and they're going to be touring this year. And normally I'd be like, awesome. I never actually seen Nine Inch Nails, and I would love to. I love that band. But also, there's part of me that's like, but that means he's not going to do any scoring while he's off, doing his main gig. Or I guess maybe it's not. Maybe that's kind of the side gig at this point. But
Yeah, I think so.
he has kind of evolved, and now I almost think of him more as a film composer than I do the Nine Inch Nails guy.
They're scoring the next Naughty Dog game that just got announced, Intergalactic. Like people made The Last of Us and Uncharted.
Yeah.
They're doing the score for this new sci-fi game that they're doing. But yeah, I mean, Challengers is just my biggest anger when the Oscar nominations came out was that the score was not nominated for best original score. No, it wasn't.
Thought it was.
And it's insane because it is by far, I think, the best score of the year. But anyway, what is your pick?
My pick is Bertelsmann for Conclave.
Nice.
I was very impressed with that score. Yeah. Again, the immersiveness of that movie, and like, the thing that I think is so brilliant about that movie is that it is such a gripping, suspenseful film about something I couldn't care less about.
Mm-hmm.
And, these very small and things that like don't register with me at all, I found myself really caring about them. And I think the music really had a lot to do with that. The visuals and the sound design of that film really, it created suspense in ways that I just didn't like thinking about that movie and how uninterested I was until, you told me it was good.
Yeah.
And a couple other people did. And I was like, all right, fine. I have to sit down and watch this. I feel like, if it actually is the way everyone says it is, then I'll like it. And I did. And I do think music was really important in that. Again, it's it's this claustrophobic, suspenseful, atmospheric movie where I wasn't, I thought it was going to be more of a prestige pick, sort of a standard, old white men talking movie. And it is that. There is a lot of that. If that's not a thing you like, there's a ton of it. But I do think the score, particularly, it had an energy, and the editing, I think, is really important with that as well, that I just wasn't expecting. And it really kind of caught me off guard. And I found myself it's a very melodic score. Which you don't always get now, I don't know. Again, I haven't seen Challengers, but I feel like it's more of a rhythmic thing. Whereas Conclave, again, it's this very classical, melodic kind of film scoring that I just really like a lot. A lot of strings and shit, which is sometimes something I like.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously Dune Part 2.
Fantastic. Sure.
Fantastic score. Also not nominated for Best Original Score because there's too much overlap of themes or whatever, which I think is it's one of those insane Academy rules that's like, guys, like just nominate the thing that's the best. Like, why are we doing this? You know what I mean? Like, who cares if he used like, movements from a previous score? Like, that's crazy to me, right? So just a really great score. I saw the TV Glow is like a great score, also a mix of like a lot of original songs as well, which is just really, really good. Really 90s
I've
sort
heard
of
some
vibe.
Alex G stuff just before this movie came out, just some of his musical stuff.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot.
Really, really good. Wild Robot is a very classical score by Chris Bowers, but a really fantastic, emotional, sweeping score as well. So really, really good stuff all around. Nosferatu and Furiosa were two kind of shortlisted ones for me that didn't quite make the cut. Love both of those scores. Quite a bit as well. All right, so you want to do adapted screenplay or original screenplay, Nick?
Well, I mean, I have less for. Let's see here. Just going down my list. I'm opening up my envelope here. Let's do adapted first because that's the one where it's kind of a clear cut pick for me again.
All right, so why don't you do your nominees first this time?
Okay, well, I don't have any nominees, so that's
you just have a pick. Okay, you just have a pick.
I just have a pick.
All right, so here are my nominees. Denis Villeneuve and John Spates for Dune Part 2. The First Omen are Akasha Stevenson, Tim Smith, and Keith Thomas. Sing Sing, Greg Quetter and Clint Bentley. Nosferatu, Robert Eggers. And Furiosa, Nico Latharos and George Miller.
Okay.
All right.
I do not have a nominee, but big ups to Dune Part 2. It's a really great script. And having finally read Dune this year, after, I think I started reading it before I saw the second movie, and then finished it. But now that I realize how complex that novel is and that world and what they were able to do over the course of those two films, it's an incredible accomplishment for an adapted screenplay. But, I could have said that about the first Dune also, so that's why I didn't really think to nominate that here.
Gotcha.
I'm going to go with Conclave, Peter Strong. I thought that movie surprised me in so many ways. And I'll be honest, there were some things about it, about the script, particularly about the story, that I thought were, I think I mentioned this to you, a little abrupt, a little
Yes.
not terribly well set up, but just the idea that they took this thing that is, it is kind of it's a hidden world that we're kind of allowed into in that film, and obviously we don't know what it's actually like, but I kind of feel like it's like this, right? The
Mhm.
backstabbing and sort of the underhandedness of these characters that are supposed to be the emissaries of God on earth, or whatever. I was just really fascinated by that, and I didn't think I was going to be. And like, again, I keep coming back to it, but I found this movie so compelling. Like, I put it on, I was like, I'm going to watch an hour of this, like exactly 2 hours. I'm going to do this over the course of 2 nights. And, I think it's the kind of movie that would benefit from some space in between. And I was just riveted by the whole thing. Like, there was no way I was turning it off. It was late at night, but I was like, I gotta finish it. I gotta see who gets elected pope. And in real, I've heard that the actual pope now is in failing health, and
Yeah.
they might actually be going through this process soon. But like, I don't really care. It's kind of not my world, not really my thing. And in this movie, I was riveted. As I said, I was so interested in how this all was going to shake out in the end. And I really do think, the ability not only to do that, but also there's a lot of world building here, because it is this kind of secret society that I feel like I have a better understanding of now. And that the movie really, it doesn't hammer you over the head with the ideas or, how the Vatican works. But I feel like it does kind of lay that out pretty nicely. And if you're willing to work along with it, it sets things up in a really interesting way. And, just the terminology and the procedure and everything, I found that all really fascinating. And I never was bored for a second of this movie that I thought was just going to be absolutely stultifying. So,
yeah. I mean, it's
that's
a
a great
political
script.
thriller, right? It's a political thriller. It just happens to be based in the Vatican is really what it is. I think it's a really sharp screenplay for
Well,
sure.
there's like a grievous crime that a character commits in this
Yes.
movie that, like, I had to look up what it was. Like, it's not the kind of crime that you normally see in a movie. Our friend Brian, his assumption about this was that someone murders the Pope, and it's like a murder mystery, like who killed the Pope,
Yeah,
which is a
yeah.
pretty good concept for a movie.
Yeah.
It is not that, although
No.
there's some maybe feints toward that.
Yeah.
But the stuff that I wouldn't normally care about, I really found myself caring about, and the characterization is fantastic. And yeah, I thought it was a very well written, very well directed movie. And, if you're going to hook me with something like that, you must have done something right.
Yeah, I mean, my winner is Denis Villeneuve and John Spates for Dune Part 2. I just think it's like a stunning work of adaptation, and I think for source material, it's obviously incredibly difficult. And also, but more than just taking that source material and going like, how do we make what's here a movie? It's also looking at that source material and going, okay, what are the things that over the years people have misunderstood about how Herbert framed it in his books, and how do we make that more obvious or more direct, or we bring out more of those themes that maybe are hidden a little bit? And also, how do we take characters like Chani and take them from being sort of like afterthoughts or like, underserved in the book,
Making them
and
fully
really make
realized.
them
Sure.
important and give our main character more of an emotional struggle, as well as this more of like metaphysical, like, what am I going to do as far as like with all this power sort of struggle, right? Like, you've got these representations of one side and the other that I think really work really, really well. And that stuff really isn't in the books, so I think it's fascinating in that way. And I think obviously really difficult to take books like that and make them into movies. They failed at it the first time around, and this time they got it, which is like crazy, right? And I think and also they did it in Dune Part 1, but I think Dune Part 2 is kind of better in every single way over Dune Part 1. So I think it just takes it to another level. So that's my winner. First Omen, much like I said about cinematography, it kind of goes throughout this whole movie. It's a fraught concept, a bad concept, a modern failing of our movie industry to go like, I don't know, what can we do that we can put a name on and something that people already know?
Yeah, what can we prequelize? What can we do an origin story for that doesn't need an origin story?
Exactly. And that's how I felt about it. I was like, okay, like this is coming out, like who cares? I mean, I love the original Omen, the Richard Donner Omen movie. That's the only one that I really care for, you know? And I was like, that's fine. Like, I mean, I don't even think it's a precious movie. It's a big, bombastic, blockbuster horror movie, right? It's not like it's some like, you know, fragile art piece that needs to be preserved for all time.
Well, and think about how bad the track record is, right? Like I think of
Yeah.
The Omen, you know, I put it in a category with The Exorcist and with oh, what's the other one? There's been a couple of like notable horror prequels that just like completely bombed, you know.
Yeah.
Just this like you're taking this thing that is self-contained and that, you know, the less we know, the scarier it is. I mean, the Exorcist prequels, I think, are very, very
Yes.
good. And then Rosemary's Baby, right?
Rosemary's Baby, yeah.
They just did 7A, Apartment 7A this year. There's no good reason to do that. And I kind of felt like the first Omen was going to be the same thing.
Yeah, and it wasn't. That's the thing. It's such an interesting take. You know, it's one of these things where, yeah, it would be great if these writers and these creative team could be like, just make a cool religious horror movie and do what you want. But to take these constraints and make something that, you know, until the obligatory like last moment of the movie where they have to go like, this connects to the, you know, the other one.
Yes, it's the weakest moment in the movie.
Yeah, because all the kids seeing the first Omen care about the 1977 Richard Donner movie or whatever. But like the everything leading up to that, it is such a weird, disturbing, artsy, kind of impressionist horror movie, you know? And I think like it could have been so much less than that. And the script, I think, has a lot to do with that, right? So really great job, you know, from them. You know, Sing Sing, which is an adaptation of an article, is really wonderful movie. Like just a wonderful movie, and you know, it's able to be tugging at your heartstrings without relying on quick, you know, shortcuts and stereotypes and, you know, manufacturing things to make you feel for certain things. It never looks down upon the people or looks up to the people who this thing is about. You know, it's just a really well done screenplay. Nosferatu, again, a very interesting work of adaptation from a very famous, obviously one of the seminal, you know, films. I thought really good. And, you know, Furiosa goes in this category mostly just because of the fact that it's technically an adaptation because it is part of a, you know, series or whatever. But I love that movie a lot more than a lot of people love that movie. It'll be all over these nominations for me in a lot of places. But a really, really, again, a really difficult thing to do. You know, it's an epic. It spans many, many years. And most times I do not jive with movies that are kind of that sweeping in one movie. And I really, really responded to this one. So, all right. So Dune Part 2 and Conclave are our winners for Adapted Screenplay. Original Screenplay. Do you have nominations for this one or just a winner, Nick?
Yeah, I have 3.
Okay. Want to do your 3?
I do. I do not have...
You have all this time, Nick, while I'm talking to look up names.
I'm so unprepared, yeah. Sorry. And I knew we were going to do this one next. So, tell you what, how about you go first and we might have some similarities.
When we get to the actors, though, Nick, you're going to be going first sometimes. All right?
Okay, that's fine.
Original Screenplay. I Saw the TV Glow, Jane Schoenbrunn, Challengers, Justin Kurtzix, I don't know how to say his last name. Trap, M. Night Shyamalan, A Real Pain. Yeah, really. I fucking love that movie, man. A Real Pain, Jesse Eisenberg, and A Different Man, Aaron Schimberg.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hold on. I have to look one more up still. There was some overlap there. We can cut this out. We can fix this in post, right?
Yeah. Yes, we can fix this in post. No, I'm leaving it all in.
You're totally leaving it all in. I know. You always leave it all in.
This thing's coming out in like 4 days.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I thought the writer and the director are the same person. So my nominees are Coralie Fargeat, The Substance, Jesse Eisenberg, A Real Pain, and Aaron Schimberg, A Different Man. And my pick, are we doing picks?
Yeah, do the winner.
Okay, so my pick is Aaron Schimberg, A Different Man. I love this movie. I think I saw this one before you did and raved about it to you and to everyone else who would care to listen. What a brilliant screenplay. I went into this knowing very little about it. I expected kind of a Cronenbergian body horror-ish thing, and it is that, but then it goes in a direction like I've heard a lot of Charlie Kaufman and Synecdoche, New York comparisons, and I could definitely see that. The thematic stuff that this movie is doing like kind of blew me away. It is about a lot more than body image, because I thought that was kind of the overall theme of the movie. You know, it's about a disfigured person who suddenly finds a way to look like Sebastian Stan, and you know what happens. And I kind of thought that was the entire story. And that's a big part of the story, but that's act one, basically. And everything that happens, I don't want to spoil really anything about what happens after that, just that I didn't know anything about it. And the directions that it went in and the philosophical ideas and the thing, this film really, it's a very meta movie that I wasn't expecting it to be. Has a lot to say about acting and identity and what it means to play a part, what it means to kind of be a different person than yourself. Had a very disarming ending that I wasn't expecting. And there's a character who arrives like about halfway through the movie who I didn't know was going to be part of the movie. And what he brings to the table, I thought was absolutely fascinating. It's a true original. I've never seen anything quite like it. And I'm going to talk about it more tonight. But yeah, that is my favorite screenplay of the year.
It's a good one. It's an excellent movie. And yes, the screenplay is very, very good. We're definitely going to talk about it more. I have it nominated in other places as well. My winner is It's Challengers by Justin Kurzel. I just love this movie, and I think it's a really complicated tapestry of relationships and dialogue and tensions that I think is pretty special. Like, I was just so completely entertained by the movie, and the way the scenes build and play off each other, and the way that it kind of weaves in and out of different time frames and times of these people's lives is really deftly done. And it's one of those movies that's tough to break down into individual parts because there's so much power happening with everyone that's involved with it that it's like, which part of this is who's part of it? Like, I haven't seen the script for it, right? So it's like, was the way this jumps around and the way this is staged in the script, or did Guadagnino come in and go like, okay, no, we're going to move this around or whatever like that? You know, who knows, right? But the fact that he keeps working with him, I think he worked, also Queer came out this year, and he also wrote that movie. So obviously that's an adaptation, but it was just a really, really special movie and a special screenplay. Again, I saw the TV Glow, Jane Schunbrunn, well, I'm going to say this about this and A Real Pain. They kind of go together in some ways for me, which is that even though I Saw the TV Glow is mostly based like in the 90s, right? It's kind of like a 90s sort of like period piece. Both of those movies do something that I think a lot of modern filmmakers are terrified to do, which is to go, let's talk about the world of now in really explicit terms, right? And I think Real Pain does it in a way that I think is really, obviously it's set like now. So they're talking about things that are happening now, not like that, like this person got elected president, but it's just more like, you can tell they're talking about the modern state of the world, right? And I Saw the TV Glow is also very much about that. It's very much about, in a much more symbolic way, in a much more Lynchian way, about how the world sort of tries to put you in a box, right? And say you are this one thing, and, you know, unless you have really this tremendous amount of bravery to like step outside that box and willing to take a lot of pain to do it, you're gonna be stuck in that box, and it's slowly going to kind of shrink you down in a lot of ways. And I think both those movies are about that in several ways. And I think I really respond to that because I feel like most really big filmmakers now, and filmmakers that are dealing with movies that get a lot of attention, are really terrified to put things in mind because they don't want a cell phone in the movie. They don't want people, you know, having like modern conveniences because they feel like it takes away from a lot of things they're trying to do. And the fact that that's what really spoke to me at the Real Pain screenplay more than anything was it really felt like it was about being alive right now, you know, and what it's like to be alive right now and the different ways people deal with that.
So let me, because that was on my list also.
Yeah, absolutely.
I liked it for a completely different reason from you, and that was the characterization. I thought those two main characters and a supporting character that I'll talk about later on tonight, just really, really brilliant. There's some moments of just, I'm not a big emoting guy. I don't like, you know, a movie where characters are kind of spilling their guts on screen, and there's a lot of that in A Real Pain. You know, as sort of is fitting with the title, but I thought it was done just really, really well here with a lot of sensitivity, and they all felt like real people. You know, I feel like both Eisenberg's character and Kieran Culkin's character, I know people like both of them, you know, and the way it does sort of deal with history and the Holocaust and sort of the painful aspects of the last century. I just thought, you know, we've seen a lot of movies about that, and you know, usually you address that topic, and that's something that usually gets Oscar attention, not always because it deserves deserves it. I think you can make a very good movie about a very serious subject, or also a very bad movie about a very serious subject. And sometimes they get overpraised for that. And this was like, it kind of just hit that sweet spot for me in dealing with that. And I thought it was very, very sensitive and very moving. And it's the way it dealt with the Holocaust and the way it dealt with, sort of family history just in general. The fact that the grandmother wasn't necessarily a saint, but was a real person. These two characters are, they're visiting their grandmother's ancestral home.
Mm-hmm.
Their grandmother's a Holocaust survivor, so there's that. There's also the way she kind of dealt with her two grandsons. She's nothing like my grandmother's. She was, not quite as, I don't want to, again, see that movie. But also the two main characters, just in general, the way they related to one another, I thought was just brilliantly done, really, really well written. There wasn't a false moment in the way they, at least for me. People have disagreed with that. I've heard some real criticism of one or both of those characters, but they just, for me, it felt really true to life. It felt like exactly the strained but very loving sort of familiar relationship that it was, and, helped along, of course, by some great acting. But
yeah.
Great story as well.
Tremendous acting in that movie. And my last one, the one you said, really? Too? Wait, this is Trap by M. Night Shyamalan.
I can't wait to hear you make a case for this.
I mean, I'm making a case for it. I just love it. I think like it's a screenplay written by a guy who knows what people expect of him, knows what people assume his stuff is going to be like and be about and what it's going to include. And really someone just being kind of a stinker about like, you think this is what I'm going to be? I'm going to do something totally different, right? And it's one of those things where, and I think I don't know if it wasn't a recorded conversation. I think it might have been just us talking before an episode or something. But it was like, I think you can easily watch this movie and be like, "Fuck this! I don't like this. Why is it? It's like this. It's like this. How could he doesn't know. He doesn't. It's bad. They talk like this certain way, and people don't talk like that. And it's like you can." Obviously not like anything. Like, if it is not your thing, it's not your thing. But I think the mistake is thinking it's unintentional, right? The mistake is thinking like, oh, he just doesn't know how to write naturalistic dialogue or, whatever. And I don't think that's not it at all. Like, I just think he's going for a very certain vibe and a very certain thing. And I think it works just really kind of bonanza, like for me. I said to Brian, I said, it's a movie with rocks in its brains, but I absolutely love it. And I just think it's a really fun thriller as well with some really cool twists and turns, and doesn't do some of the stuff that I think a lesser writer would have done with some of the development of the characters in it. So really, 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 really love that movie. All right. So we're on to our first.
We didn't talk about the substance.
Oh, shit. Sorry. I'm sorry.
We have to talk about the script of the substance because, again, that's another movie that I thought I knew what it was, and it kind of went in not a different direction, but kind of took a different tack. It was what I thought it was, but also kind of veered off course from that. I didn't realize it was going to be as funny as it was, and I just found it incredibly witty and super gross in ways that, I have to give it credit for that, right? I mean, the way that was realized, we could talk about the way it was shot.
I mean, that's more like direction and stuff like that.
Right. But I think some of the ideas in the script that sort of were the bedrock for that, that were just brilliant and unusual, and the way that movie begins and ends. I think it may be, I've heard the complaint that it's too long and it has too many endings, but I absolutely love where it arrived at the end and the way of sort of telling this story. And Brian and I had a really interesting, we talked, he is the ghost of the podcast.
He is the ghost of the podcast.
We cannot not talk about Brian, but we're just sort of talking about, who this character was, the Elizabeth Sparkle story and, the satirical elements of it that were not, she's a has-been, TV fitness show star, which there hasn't even been one of those shows in however many years. The way the movie sort of makes you believe that, and the way it makes you, it has these kind of very silly contrivances or just sort of ideas, and it just like steamrolls right over them because it's so funny. The satire is so good. It is very, very over the top, and it's not at all afraid to be. The Dennis Quaid character made me laugh so much. There's just so many things in it that are so smart. And then there's this philosophical idea in this movie, which, has been talked about a little bit, but people kind of focus on the body horror stuff and kind of the feminist sort of side of it. And there's this amazing, and I don't know if I even want to talk about it because I think it's too much of a spoiler of the movie, but this idea of how you would feel about a better version of yourself and how that better version of yourself might feel about you, the shittier version of yourself, as compared to them.
Yeah.
What a brilliant philosophical idea. And this movie really hammers that home and explores that in ways that I didn't expect it to. I kind of thought this was going to be more of a standard, aging actress does this crazy thing to get her youth back. And then, most movies, it's like, well, they have to drink blood or something and they become a murderer. And it's not that. It certainly is a horrifying movie in a lot of ways, but it is a lot more singularly focused on that character and not so much how she affects other people, but how she affects herself.
Yeah, and that's all what it's about, right? That's almost 100% what it's about. It has really nothing to do with, the outside world as much as it has to do with her.
Right, and the idea that the substance is, not that it's not a terrible thing, but there is a way to have that in your life and have that in your world that doesn't go down the road that Elizabeth Sparkle goes down, and it's kind of her fault in a lot of ways. And I found that really interesting too. This is kind of willing to do some stuff with that character that I didn't expect it to. I really liked Coralie Is it Fargi or Fargi?
I think it's Farge. I think it's Farge. I think it's Farge. That's when I've watched interviews and stuff like that and podcast interviews with her. That's what people have introduced her as. So I'm assuming that's how you say her name. Obviously, they could be saying her name wrong too. So I'm not gonna the Bible, but I think that's how you say her name.
Well, maybe. Either way, I'm a big fan of hers. I was very excited after seeing her first film, Revenge, and really, really liking that film, both from a visual standpoint and, again, from the way that film takes a very familiar plot and a very familiar genre and kind of does its own unique and interesting and really singular and certainly very female-centric version of it. That is it's a rape revenge movie, and we've seen many of those going back to the 70s, the exploitation period, and all of those were made by men for the most part. And, although the gist of those movies is, a female character takes righteous revenge on those who did her wrong.
Right.
That movie is that, but does it in a way that none of the rest of them do and feels a lot more true to like what an actual woman might think. And the substance is kind of that for this other genre that it's also, riffing on familiar things that we've seen before. And, I'm just a big fan of genre films that are, not elevated in the A24, the stereotypical way. Like, this is a horror movie with no scares, right?
Yeah.
The substance is it's a genre movie in a lot of ways, but also like the vibe is, it's Terry Gilliam, it's David Cronenberg, it's, a little bit of that sort of, it's like Day of the Locust or something. I really enjoyed it a lot. And I think the story and the way it plays out is pretty fascinating.
Bar none the craziest movie ever being nominated for Best Picture.
Absolutely.
100%. Like I mentioned this when the nominations came out and to someone and they were like, well, yeah, but Everything Ever All at Once won. So it's not that interesting. The Substance got nominated. And I was like, have you seen The Substance yet? And they were like, no. I was like, you got no idea what you're talking about because Everything All at Once is like the most normal Oscar movie possible compared to The Substance. Well,
if you boil that movie down to what it's really about, what the moral of that movie is, it's an Oscar movie. It's about the meaning of life or something, right? It's this very
cool way, done in a very cool way. I love that movie.
Yeah, right? I like that movie a lot too. Everybody does. But, if you really kind of come down to it, it's a pretty typical Oscar pick. Whereas this one, this feels like that exploitation, that genre movie or that over the top, John Waters kind of satire that somehow just snuck through the cracks and made it to this tier.
It feels like if The Fly was nominated for Best Picture. Like that's kind of almost what it feels like.
It has some imagery that's similar to The Fly, but takes it like 100 miles past.
100%. Yes.
I will say, my biggest criticism of The Substance is there's some interesting ideas in it that I know there's a lot of people that I know would be very interested in that, but they wouldn't be able to get past the imagery.
Yeah, but that's
unfortunately it's alienating a lot of its potential audience, but I kind of love it for that too.
That's what the mixed movie special. If the movie was less than that, it wouldn't be a special movie. The Substance is an interesting film for me because I like The Substance. I liked it a lot, but I didn't like watching it because it was just the imagery got too intense for me at times where I was like, I can't even look at this right now.
I'll tell you, I'm as hardened a gore film viewer. There's a local organization that is screening Martyrs next month.
Oh boy.
which I love that movie. I
Yeah,
think
but
that movie
that's
is brilliant and fascinating, and I'm going to go to that screening. But like, this was the first movie I've seen in years where I had to watch like about half of it just like this. And credit to the filmmakers for doing that. But yeah, I mean, I want to recommend it to a lot of people that I'm not going to recommend it to because I don't think they can handle it.
yeah, no, definitely not. That's a very specific kind of person you have to recommend it to for sure.
Well, it's like, who am I going to bring to the screening of Martyrs? And it's like, nobody. I'm just going to
Nobody.
go myself and be a super creep.
Whoever you
But
bring would like you'd lose them as a friend.
yeah,
They're like, why did you bring me to this?
or lose them as a wife, which
Yeah,
would also be
exactly,
done.
exactly. All right. Best supporting actor or actress? Do you want to do first?
Let's go actor.
Okay, best supporting actor.
Save the best for last. Right?
Yes. You want to read your nominees?
Sure.
Nick? All right.
Best supporting actor. Hold on. That's best actor. Okay. So these are kind of in subcategories, right? So I've got two actors from Conclave, John Lithgow and Stanley Tucci.
Good ones.
I've got two interesting actors playing super gross villain roles. So one of them is Dennis Quaid in The Substance.
Good
and
one.
the other one, a film that you have not seen that I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it, is Ed Harris in Love Lies Bleeding.
Ooh, okay. I mean, I
Love
said
that
Harris.
guy. Yeah. We've talked. I'm a big fan of Ed Harris. We
Yeah.
talked about that on the show, and Kieran Culkin for Real Pain.
Yeah.
So I mentioned this before, right? As far as categories go, how is Kieran Culkin a supporting actor in that movie?
So here's the thing. I think obviously we're categorizing this by the way the Oscars are categorizing
Right.
it.
That's the only reason I put him in this category, because I think he's a lead actor and he would have been my pick for lead actor.
They ran him in supporting, so I thought about it for a while. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna put him in lead.
I was going to do that too.
But I was like, you know what? I don't want to squeeze out someone from my lead for this, so I'll put him back in the supporting. Here's the only case I can sort of make for it, right? Is that, although he is in as much of the movie as Eisenberg is, if not even maybe a little bit more, as far as like if you clock screen time, you were really mostly experiencing him through Eisenberg's sort of lens, right? You're sort of reacting to the Culkin character through the way Eisenberg is reacting to the Culkin character, right? Your insight into who the Culkin character is, other than what he's presenting to this tour of people, is really through Eisenberg, right?
Well, right. And it's also a buddy movie, right? Like, you think of the sort of classic buddy comedy setup, right? And it's hard to call like Danny Glover or Mel Gibson the lead actor in the Lethal Weapon movies, right? Because they both kind of are, they're two halves of a coin or something like that. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think
they're kind of supporting each other.
Exactly. Yeah. They definitely are supporting each other. So I think it's tough, right? You have to you can't run them both in lead. I mean, I don't even know if they campaigned for Eisenberg in lead. I don't think they did. Not very hard anyway, but
he's very good in it too.
He's great in it. I mean, he's wonderful in it. And the thing we're getting to the acting award, so I'll go through my nominees really quick.
Yeah.
I almost didn't nominate Culkin because I was like, I know Nick's going to nominate him. He's going to win the Oscar. Like, we need to give him even more, because I do think it's generally one of the best performances of the year. I absolutely love him in the movie. Jesse Plemons in Civil War, David Johnson in Alien Romulus, Adam Pearson in A Different Man, and the tough one was picking between two people, Karen Karagulian from Anora, or Jack Haven from I Saw the TV Glow. Love both the performances. I think I'm going to go Karagulian from Anora for my number 5, but Haven was very, very close. And if Culkin was not, if I had been like, this is the honorary Kieran Culkin Best Supporting Actor Award, that would the Jack Haven would have been on my list. I mean, my winner is Culkin.
Mine too. It's
I
not
feel
even
like
close.
It's so boring, to like do it, because he's going to win the Oscar. He swept every single award, but I don't think that means we shouldn't talk. If he's our favorite, we should go another way. The thing that most impresses me about the performance is it is one of these things about movies that I love and movie acting that I love, and let's say movie. Something called the movie. Neither one of them are really movie stars, but movie actors, like movie personalities that have been around for a long time. They have a thing, right? Eisenberg has a thing. Culkin has a thing, right? And they both are doing their thing in this movie, right? You would never confuse Jesse Eisenberg for anybody else, nor Culkin.
Yeah, Jesse Eisenberg and Henry Cavill are two very different people.
Yeah, never the twain shall meet. But what I love about that, though, and I think people undervalue about that, and it's weird to say that knowing that Culkin's about to win an Oscar, right? But the thing that people undervalue about that is that what that allows them to do is immediately have the viewer be in on a certain level automatically, right? You're already in. You know Jesse Eisenberg is going to be kind of neurotic, nebbish guy, and you know Culkin's going to be like very, very quick-witted and like a little bit mean, right? But funny and charming. So you're like, okay, I feel safe. I'm here with these two guys. I feel like they can take me on a journey. And then they both are able to add the kind of paprika on the top of it to really make their performances sort of soar, right? And
to go a little bit against that in moments where it really disarms you. It really kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. And the Culkin performance, I think what makes it magic is that I don't think I've ever seen a performance where it feels like he's a open emotional wound at all times. Like even when he's being funny, you can feel that there is just something underneath that is just festering and open and hurting so bad. It's just like this, everything is right on the surface and you can see it even when he's not playing those emotions. And it's just one of those things where when he really starts to break down in a scene, I'm going to pieces because I am like almost been fearing it, like anxious about it the whole movie because I know it's coming, right? You can feel it coming the whole time. And I think it's just a wonderful, wonderful performance that is just so emotionally true and real.
There's a great moment. It's early on in the film where he tries to get his straight-laced cousin, played by Jesse Eisenberg, to smoke some weed with him at a hotel. It's they've been traveling the whole day, and Eisenberg, I think, is making the right choice. Like, we had to get up tomorrow morning. We're just going to go to bed. And yet something about Culkin in that moment, it's that vulnerability. Like, no, please go smoke weed with him. Like, just go up to the roof and smoke some pot and eat some snacks, which they end up doing, which I was so happy about that. But like, it's this little thing, and yet there's so much, like you said, this sort of just barely subsumed pain there, and it's like this person really needs a friend in that moment, and you really sort of feel that, like you want to just jump into the screen and hang out with them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's tough to like say more about him because everyone's saying so much about him, but it really is a truly great performance from an actor I really love, who I've been buying stock in since
See, I've never watched Succession, so I've always liked Kieran Culkin too, but like the thing that he is most known for now, I have no frame of reference for.
Right.
Just that I've heard it's really good.
It is.
So he was, I guess I probably expected the persona or knew the persona a little bit less than you did going into this movie. But yeah, he's incredible in this, and there's really nobody else to give it to. Although I think my other choices are a lot of fun. They were all very, very good.
Yeah, no, this was the hardest category for me to really whittle down in a lot of ways because there were a lot of really great supporting performances this year that I really loved. Just to talk about Jesse Plemons in Civil War, he's got one scene in the movie, and you see it in the trailer. It was like one of the big moments in the trailer where he's like, "What kind of American are you?" or whatever. Just chilling. Wearing these little pink hard glasses on, and it's chilling. He's so good. That guy's just a slam dunk every time he shows up on screen. I almost nominated him for Best Actor for Kinds of Kindness this year as well.
Still need to see that.
Really just... Kinds of Kindness is a movie where Yorgos Lanthimos, I feel like, was like, after Poor Things, right? And everyone loved it. And everyone's like, oh, this guy's like the new, like, kooky, like, Tim Burton, guy. He's like, no. You guys don't really know the kind of movies that I make.
So Kinds of Kindness, it sounds like another killing of a sacred deer.
Oh, God, yeah. Everyone is I
love that movie,
giant piece of shit in this movie. Everyone's terrible to each other. It's weird and off-putting. It's really good. I liked it a lot. But, if you go into it thinking like, oh, I loved Poor Things and now I'm going to love this, you're going to have a rude awakening if you haven't seen his other movies.
Yeah.
But anyway, just Plemons is great in it, and he's just chilling, and he's the most memorable thing about a movie that I liked a lot. But he's the most memorable thing about it by a mile. David Johnson from Alien Romulus, I'd never seen him before in anything, and blew me away. Just blew me away. I think it's got a lot of depth and a lot of different levels to it, and following in this great line, right, of actors who have played this type of character in these Alien movies, right? Whether it be Fassbender or Hendrickson or Ian Holm, like there's just like this like great, lineage of it. And I think he fits into it wonderfully. And I think it's really a wonderful performance in that movie. Adam Pearson from A Different Man, which I'm surprised was not on your list, to be honest with you.
We'll get to that. There's another category. I did some category stuff.
Okay. I mean, he's a supporting performance, Nick.
Well,
Nick,
maybe.
there is a lead to that movie. There is an abject lead of that movie. And then there are other performances in it.
Like,
he's a huge part of the movie, but the movie is, from Sebastian Stan's perspective, 100%.
Well, you're not going to like my best actor category then.
Okay,
but,
well,
go ahead. You can talk about Adam Pearson now if you'd like
it's
to.
category fraud if you're putting him in lead actor.
Well, that's like simony, a crime that nobody cares about because nobody knows what it means.
Just a really amazing, performance. I think it's one of those things where it could very well be a gimmick performance, in a different movie. And really, I think, is the performance that hammers home the themes that the movie is really trying to deliver to you, right? So that's it. And then Karan Kargulian, who is in Anora, he's like this Russian priest, or Russian, I think he's a priest, he's or pastor or something. He's like a religious leader, but he has to basically be the one to find this Russian oligarch's son who has married the titular exotic dancer / escort, and his parents are coming to get him and take him back to Russia, but he runs away, and so they all have to one day they have to find him or whatever, and he comes into the movie I don't know, 45 minutes into the movie or something like that, and just is this lightning bolts in the movie that I just love so much. I mean, Yuri Borislav is the one who got nominated for an Oscar, and he's fucking fantastic in the movie, no doubt, and really a great performance, but he's getting his flowers. I just love this guy. I love that he's just such a guy. He's he's just one of those people who a face that could only play this type of character and doesn't get to be in a lot of things, but you get a guy like that in this movie, and he just makes it sing a little bit. So really, really great performance there. And quickly,
my others.
I just gotta mention, I mentioned Jack Haven really quick from I Saw the TV Glow. Really the kind of the sort of gear that the movie turns around and really is the tone setter for the movie in many, many ways. Really, really good performance, and a really quiet, small performance, which is something that obviously you don't get a lot of flowers for a lot of the time, but really just a quiet, kind of insular, but really important supporting performance in a movie that I love. So anyway, go ahead, Nick.
Okay, so again, I think Lithgow and Stanley Tucci, I mean, we don't need to talk about them individually.
Yeah.
Again, it's a terrific ensemble cast in that film. Isabella Rossellini as well, who I also really like. But, again, I really enjoyed the script of that movie. The dialogue is just very crackling in a way that you wouldn't expect it to be. And these guys are just so game for it. Lithgow especially. I mean, as much as I love Stanley Tucci, I love the character. I love the character's name. I want to be Aldo Bellini. But I think if I had to tip it over to one or the other, Lithgow is a less likable character and is just so good at that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the looks and some of the ways he tries to sort of hide his true intentions are just, I found him really fascinating. And I think my favorite parts of the movie all involved him. So yeah, really great performance there. And then my two sleazy villain characters, I mean, we already kind of talked about Dennis Quaid and The Substance, literally just the epitome of sleaze. Hey, I know people don't like Dennis Quaid. He's
as a person, no.
As a person, right. But I think it's kind of, he doesn't have for a while I would have thought of him as the character you cast as somebody's respectable dad in a movie or something like that, or this very clean cut sort of American hero character. And here he's completely going against that type. He is, your Hollywood sleazeball, with the popped collars and the opening scene when we see him eating prawns just by the handful in just the grossest way possible. One of the grossest scenes in the movie. And it's such a gross movie in so many other ways. So I think that's pretty impressive.
Very Denethor in Return of the King coded.
Yeah. Just really, really great. He is just, you hate every second of him. You want to just take a shower after seeing him in any scene in that movie. And he just chews scenery, I think, brilliantly in that film. And then the other one, and I don't want to spoil it too much for you, but Ed Harris plays a very unlikable character in Love Lies Bleeding. But with this horrible ponytail, maybe it's the hair. Maybe I think the hair does a lot of acting for him. Ed Harris, famous, guy with not a lot of hair.
Yes.
And he's got nothing on top but this just gruesome ponytail, very long, longer than shoulder length ponytail in the back. He's one of the main character's fathers, and he is one of the villainous characters in that movie, and you know it right away. So I don't think that's too much of a spoiler.
You know it from the trailer.
Yeah, well, I don't watch trailers. Or
Yeah.
I try not to, especially for stuff like that, where I want to be, caught up in it. And there are some surprises in that movie, even if you have seen the trailer, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
That has one of the wildest endings I think I've ever seen in anything ever. But Ed Harris's character in that movie is just like, he is the movie overall. Like, tonally, it's a very interesting movie where it's just kind of on the edge of comedy or dark comedy. It feels a little bit like, a Coen Brothers type thing or something like that, but it is darker and kind of doing its own thing. And I think he really epitomizes that well, because the menace that he exudes in that movie, and again, just sort of the sleaziness of him. Boy, nobody does it better than that. I mean, he's a great actor anyway. I love him as a sympathetic villain, like in Gone Baby Gone or in The Rock. But when he just goes full on shitbag mode, nobody does it better. So really, really enjoyed that performance a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely gonna watch that movie. I mean, Kristen Stewart's one of my favorite movie actresses right now. So
okay, I'm kind of indifferent on Kristen Stewart, but we will talk more about that movie tonight.
Okay, all right. So I'll go through. This is the first category I really have a lot of runners up. So I'm just gonna read them out really quick, not really talk about them.
Supporting actress,
supporting actor. Right, that's what we're doing right now. Yeah, supporting actors. These are just my runners up, my kind of honorable mentions, just really quick. Bill Skarsgård, Nosferatu, Mike Feist, Challengers, Jason Bateman, Carry On, Peter McCone from Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Dennis Quaid from The Substance, Nick Holt from Nosferatu, Nicolas Cage from Longlegs. So those are kind of my my runners up, my honorable mentions for best supporting actor. All right, best supporting actress. I'll go first on this one. You went first on supporting actor, right? So I'll go first on this one.
Yeah, perfect.
So my nominees are, I don't know how to say your name completely, Renata Renzi from A Different Man.
Yeah, I got her too, and I don't know how to pronounce the name either.
Yeah. Maya Hawke from Inside Out 2, Zendaya from Dune Part 2, Monica Barbaro from A Complete Unknown, and Ariana Grande from Wicked. Those are my five.
My five are Katie O'Brien from Love Lies Bleeding.
Nice.
Told you we'd be talking about that again too. Renata Reinsve, or however you pronounce her name, from A Different Man. Rebecca Ferguson from Dune 2.
Nice.
Hold on. I just want to make sure I'm Margaret Qualley from The Substance. We'll talk about her again later as well. And Jennifer Grey from Real Pain.
Good one. Good one. She's very good in that movie. Very good in that movie. Who's your pick?
My pick is Jennifer Grey from Real Pain.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was, I didn't recognize her at first.
I like that
haven't
pick.
really seen her in a while, but she is, again, I think I mentioned this earlier on the show. It's this really interesting supporting character. It is, another person who's part of this tour group and interacts with Karen Culkin and Jesse Eisenberg along the way, and has a little bit of monologuing to do herself. I think she is the character we get to know. There's the two of them who are clearly our leads, and she's the one we get to know the next best from those two. And,
definitely.
Just a very, she, again, just like those two characters, feels a lot like a real person. It feels like there is a lot of, I hate to say it, but real pain in this performance. And,
for sure.
She's a divorcee and, again, has a connection to the Holocaust. And I really like kind of all the choices she made there. And she just seemed like, someone that you could know, but played in a way that is also sort of very moving and dramatic. And I really like that about her.
Absolutely. I think one of the things I love about that movie is just that it just feels like real people being kind of open and, with each other. And
it never goes it has the structure of a comedy, but it never kind of goes in that direction where you don't believe the choices that people make and the way they behave together. There's not a lot of over the top moments of confrontation or anything like that. And I think her character kind of nicely epitomizes that, and there's just moments where she's not even talking, where it's like, yeah, I get it. I get what she's doing. I get who she is.
Yeah. She looks great too. She looks really great.
Yeah. I honestly didn't recognize her, not because, I thought she was going to look bad or something, but I don't know.
Jennifer Grey just isn't in a lot of movies.
Right. I couldn't think of another thing recently I've seen her in. And when I saw it, I tried not to stop that movie and look at the credits and see who was in it. And I didn't know it was her until the end. So I thought that was kind of cool.
That is very cool. I didn't know it was her until right this moment.
Well, wow. Okay.
So there you go. Man, this was one of the harder categories for me to get a 5 for. And then also, it's really tough for me to pick a winner in this one. So I'm going to talk through my nominees.
I had a tough time narrowing it down to 5.
I'm going to talk through my nominees with you. And then I might just be picking it on the fly here. So I think I've heard her name somewhere. I think it is Renata Rensiv. I think that's how you say her name. I think from A Different Man. Obviously, most known for what is The Worst Person in the World or whatever that movie. I've never seen that movie. People love that movie. I have
Me
not
either.
seen that
I
movie.
would like to see that movie.
Really kind of fascinating performance in A Different Man, because she starts out, you feel like she's one thing, and then by the end of the movie, she's something totally different. And you realize that the whole time she's been this one thing, but you've just kind of seeing her through this idealized lens that slowly starts to like fall apart as it go, as the movie goes along. And she's kind of a villain, in the movie in some ways. And I just think it's a fascinating performance where she never goes too far in any direction, right? She's never going too far in any direction. And yet you at times completely understand where she's coming from, or completely hate where she's coming from. And really, there's not much difference in the way that she's delivering. It's just like this, a lot going on. Very interesting, subtle performance. Really, really good performance. Maya Hawke in Inside Out 2, she plays anxiety in Inside Out 2. I truly think it's one of the finest vocal performances I've ever heard in a movie. I don't think Inside Out 2 is a great movie, which is why you won't see it on anywhere else on this list. I love the first one, but this one I think is just like, it's just like, okay. Like, it's got some good stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's got some good stuff in it, but it's not the same thing as the first one. But Maya Hawke, I think, is just really, really great in this movie and doing some really difficult, tough things to navigate as far as what the concept of her character is, obviously. And I just think it really does a good job of giving a simplified example of what it feels like when you have anxiety, right? And I just think it's really good. I think Maya Hawke in general is a really good actress who just hasn't been able to like break out of like the TV streaming sort of like bubble yet. But I think once she does, I think she'll be a pretty big star. I just think like right now it's just kind of contained within that bubble. Because Zendaya in Dune 2, we talked about Chani already. I think it's just it could be just such a girlfriend performance, you know what I mean? And there's just so much more going on to it. And I just think she's just, for someone who is as young as she is, just is this like amazing screen presence that's able to navigate things in ways that only really seasoned actors are usually able to navigate them. And she makes the part something else and something bigger than I think it actually is. And
because I had Rebecca Ferguson, and I think same thing is true of both of them for Dune 2. Like, they're very soulful performances in a world and in a movie where, like, reading the novel Dune now especially, you have to kind of imply a lot of that stuff, right? And the movies make it a little more real, what these characters are actually feeling, because it is, it's kind of like a biblical epic or something like that, right? Where it's this big sweeping movie with this big sweeping universe and this sort of this not exactly, I wouldn't call him an anti-hero exactly, but this character who we have a lot of problems with at the center of it, and we are sort of meant to, have those problems with him.
Yeah.
But it's these female characters who kind of ground the story, especially, I mean, we don't get that much in the novel, but we certainly get that in the movies. And it's these very sort of emotional, soulful performances that make these kind of larger than life, because I think everyone in that story is kind of a larger than life figure.
Absolutely.
But it's these female characters that like actually make them feel real and kind of make the emotional impacts happen a lot in the Dune movies. So yeah, I could have easily, she could have been on my list as well, but I just really, really like Rebecca Ferguson, and we should talk about her as much as possible.
She's amazing. I love Rebecca Ferguson so much. Speaking of Dune, before we move on too far, in Best Supporting Actor, I totally forgot, one of my short list was Austin Butler as well. I think he's just took it out of this world good.
Yeah.
Anyway, Monica Barbaro in A Complete Unknown. One of these things where I think Complete Unknown as a whole, and it'll come up again for another category, but not for like Best Picture for me or anything like that. I don't love music biopics really at all. Like, I'm really kind of put off by them in many ways. But I just really liked A Complete Unknown, and I think performance is a lot of the reason why. There's really strong performances across the board. I mean, Edward Norton as Pete Seeger, again, is another person that could have easily made my Best Supporting Actor list. He's just a performance from Ed Norton that you wouldn't even expect. He's just so like, and when you take the teaspoons and put them here, he's just very low key, right? But Barbaro as Joan Baez, just, again, such a soulful performance. And again, could be, again, one of these performances that's like, oh, she's one of Bob Dylan's girls, or whatever. And it could have really been that, and She brings something else to it. Also, she sings like a goddamn angel in it. And it's like, she's really singing in it. Joan Baez is not an easy person to sing like.
Yeah, it's a very distinctive voice for sure.
Yeah, and a very high, very beautiful, very like, amazing voice, right? It's not like, I love Bob Dylan, but Bob Dylan has a very unique voice that I think has a lot of impressions, right? You don't hear a lot of Joan Baez impressions, right? Just really good, really, really great in that movie. And then, Ariana Grande in Wicked, it's one of those things where I was like, I'm a pop music fan. I like Ariana Grande, fine. Like, she's not one of my favorite people, not one of my favorite artists. She also has a weird, star persona where she probably is a weirdo, right? But like, I was not knowing what I was going to expecting coming into it. She obviously has a history of being in theater when she was young. She was on TV before she was a pop star. She has all of those chops, right? But it's for musical theater, a legendary performer originated the role in Kristen Chenoweth. It is the show came out 20 something years ago and it is still running on Broadway. It's one of those things where like, it's a big role to step into. And she just kills it. She nails it. She's so funny. Like in another world, in next year, there would be some romantic screwball comedy based around her as the lead. If they still made those movies, you know what I mean? Her comic chops are unbelievable in the movie. And her singing performance is not if you listen to Ariana Grande's pop music, even though she has a very good voice, it's nothing like what she sings like in Wicked, right? She's not doing her pop star voice in Wicked. She's doing a totally different thing. It's a total transformation. And her acting as well is also very, very good. Like there are key moments in that story, which is also a fucking crazy, weird, bananas story that she's able to ground because of her performance. So she's quite great in the movie. So this is a really tough pick for me. I think just from how I talked about them, I got to go with Ariana Grande in Wicked as my winner. She was kind of the person I was thinking of, but Monica Barbaro really kind of shot up the list for me after I saw that movie. But I think it's Ariana Grande. I can't deny it.
So Ariana Grande for you and Jennifer Grey for me.
Yeah.
So we're at two ends of the age spectrum there, I guess.
Exactly.
I did want to mention, we talked a little bit about Renata Reinsve. I think she's great in that movie. Everything you said, I 100% agree with. It's just an interesting role and someone that I was not super familiar with. And you could have seen, I think in that part, you could have seen a more sort of recognizable person. And I kind of liked that she was, a little bit of an unknown, and I thought she did a great job with that. We talked a little about Rebecca Ferguson, Margaret Qualley, and in The Substance, kind of, like I don't know how much I want to talk about who she is or what she does. She's got a lot of like screen presence. I think, let's just be very vague about it. I've been seeing all kinds of memes about the lip bite thing that she does, and she's like right to camera in this movie. But it's kind of she's kind of playing someone else, but it's not necessarily a caricature of that person or even of that person's character in this movie. There is a little bit of, particularly like when the mask slips a little bit, metaphorically, not physically.
It does slip physically at some.
Yeah. The whole face does. Yeah, I don't know. I've liked her in a lot of stuff. I saw her, in The Leftovers back in the day, and I was like, this is someone who's probably going to be like an Oscar caliber actor. You could just sort of tell she was very young back then, and really interesting role for her. And I think she goes to some pretty daring lengths, and I really like that performance as well. And the one that I wanted to talk about a little bit, because you haven't seen the movie, and I'm sure you don't know much about this actress, is Katie O'Brien.
I know actually a little bit about her. She's in some Star Wars show. She's very good in it. With Mandalorian. Okay, well, she's in The Mandalorian. That's what she's in.
I have not seen her in that. I think the first time I've ever seen her in anything was Love Lies Bleeding, and it's a breakthrough role. I think she's kind of the emotional core of the movie, and it's her and Kristen Stewart. They're the main characters. They're in a relationship together. Kind of the film is it's a dark comic, but pretty violent. I don't know, neo-noir kind of movie, which, that's my genre. I love that kind of stuff. But she kind of brings some pain and some experience. And, I think that movie, like I went into that movie, I'll get into it a little bit later, but I went into that expecting it to be a funnier and less sort of, I don't know, or just more of a sort of nihilistic 90s style neo-noir, almost like a Tarantino style movie or something like that. And in some ways it definitely is, but it's a little bit darker and a little more painful and a little bit more serious and a little bit more romantic than that. There is a relationship at the center of that I think is really interesting. And, Kristen Stewart's a great actress. She's not my favorite, but she's really good in it as well. But this actress that I had never really seen before, I feel like she does a lot of the heavy lifting. She's a bodybuilder, so that's a stupid dad joke that I didn't mean to make. But she does, the heavier emotional stuff is kind of more on her. And she also figures very prominently in that wild ending that I don't want to even hint at spoiling because everyone needs to sort of see that for themselves. But yeah, I just really like this performance. I'm interested to see her in more things. Physically, obviously she's in great shape. She looks like a bodybuilder. The movie is kind of about that and body image stuff and that kind of stuff. But also she's just, I don't know, just really good in it. I really liked the performance. I didn't know what to expect because I didn't know much about her. And I think that it's an underrated movie. Something worth seeing. It kind of came and went, and I want to see the director of that, Rose Glass, writer-director of that, made a movie called Saint Maud, I think it was called, a couple of years ago. Horror film, and I really want to see that. Still haven't gotten around to it. It's 80 minutes long, which I fucking love.
That's perfect.
So I'm going to be watching that one really soon.
Yeah, Kenny O'Brien also, the thing I was trying to remember that she's in Ant-Man Quantumania.
Okay, well, I like her, but I'm not watching that.
Yeah, and she's in Twisters as well. But
yeah, all right. So I guess she wasn't as unknown as I thought. But
no, but I mean, she's small parts in both of those things.
Yeah,
like
she's basically the co-lead in this movie.
But it's like she's one of those people though that when you see her, you don't forget her. So when you see her in something, she sticks in your mind because she doesn't look like other people all the time. I really want to see that movie. Pretty badly.
Check it out. I'm interested in your thoughts. I liked it a lot.
So some of my runners up really quick. Margaret Qualley in The Substance. Alicia Witt in Longlegs, who plays the mom.
Cool. Yeah,
in Longlegs. I think she's a fantastic performance.
Always liked her, for sure.
Yeah, she's great. She's great. Even though she's part of like my least favorite story part of Longlegs.
Same here. Yeah.
I think her performance is great.
She had a great look for a movie like that, too.
Absolutely. Perfect look. And I also think that Kieran Shipka is awesome in her one scene in Longlegs, that the asylum scene or whatever it is. The
Very good in Oz Perkins' earlier movie, The Black Coat's Daughter, which everyone should see. The movie's great.
One of those people, I just like her thing. Like, I like her on screen. I think she's good. I just think she's charming. She did that movie Totally Killer a couple of years ago, which was sort of like this, like, it's in that vein of like Happy Death Day, kind of like, it's like a time travel horror movie, basically, where she ends up going back in time to like when her mom was a kid or whatever to stop a killer or whatever. And it's all by accident or whatever that she ends up there.
I didn't see that. That sounds fun.
It's totally a ton of fun, and she's so good in it. A couple weird ones too for me. Ali Carvalho in Mean Girls. She's the voice of Moana.
That's Moana. Yeah, of course.
She's so good in Mean Girls. Just her voice is just out of this world good. She plays like the Lizzie Kaplan character basically in the musical. And this is the only time you hear me talk about this movie in the show. Emma Corrin, who plays the bad guy in Deadpool and Wolverine. She's just really good in that movie. She's like just really good. She's the most grounded thing about that movie, and she's really, really good in it. She's also very good in Nosferatu, but just an actress who I think is pretty interesting.
I liked her a lot in Nosferatu. Yeah,
she's very good in Nosferatu.
Still haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine, but
I mean, look, it's a good time. I'm not gonna tell you it's not a good time. I laughed plenty of times watching the movie. I appreciated all the references. I was like, oh, cool. It's one of those movies that like, for instance, I saw the TV Glow when I saw it. I have my Letterboxd list, and once I see something, I just put it like rank it, like first instinct rank it, right? And I saw the TV Glow was at a certain rank, and then like every day I would look at the list, I'd be like, you know what? I think I liked it more than this. I think I liked it more than this. And with Deadpool and Wolverine, it was like the opposite. I was like, no, I liked it less than this. I liked it less than this. So it's one of those movies where it just like doesn't have a lot going for it, but it was totally fine way to spend a couple of hours. You know what I mean? Especially if you like the early 2000s like superhero Fox stuff. Like, it's just fun in that kind of way. All right. So best actress. No, let's do best actor first, because we did best supporting actor first, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you read off your nominees for best actor, Nick?
Okay. Well, this is a very short list, and you're not going to like one of my choices here.
Well, I already know I'm not going to like it because it shouldn't count. But you fine. You make it.
It's still a cop out. Okay. So All right. So I took Kieran Culkin off of this list, so it's
Right.
that's dealt with already. Timothy Chalamet, not for a complete unknown because I haven't seen it yet, but for Dune Part 2. Uh, uh, Ray Fiennes for Conclave.
Great pick.
And Sebastian Stan / Adam Pearson for A Different Man, which
At least give them their own nominations, Nick.
no, they're
No, Nick, you can't / nominate two people for one thing.
feel like in this movie, in this role, I can.
They're not playing two sides of the same coin at all. They're playing two separate people. I think that's the exact point of the movie. I think it's the exact point of the movie. But, they're different people. You can't. Like, if you were like, oh, I'm going to nominate blah, blah, blah actor because they had two big movies, I'll nominate them for both movies. I would be like, yeah, that's fine. But you can't nominate two people for one movie. Like, as in the same nomination. Just give me each a separate nomination and have the balls to pick one of them as the winner, Nick.
Well, neither one of them's my pick anyway,
okay, so that's fine.
We'll call them separate nominations just for you. But I feel like in my heart, they are one and the same. My pick is Ray Fiennes in Conclave.
Interesting.
I loved this performance so much. A very understated, particularly as some of the other characters in that movie were not doing that, but I liked this character. I liked the he has these great moments. Like he is. I think one of the interesting things about this movie is it takes this thing, this choosing of the new pope and this Vatican palace intrigue stuff, and makes it very much like, you mentioned, like it is a political thriller. It's also kind of a workplace movie.
Yes.
And I feel like he really gets that aspect of it across in a really sort of fascinating way, where this is the job, he's, one of the things that I found really interesting is they keep calling him the dean, and then it's like it's the College of Cardinals, so it's a college and the dean of the college. So that actually sort of made sense to me, right?
Absolutely.
And, interacting with deans of colleges, because that's the world that I kind of live in my professional life. Like there's people like this character there, and he is this, he's like an everyman that is in this insane secret society sort of world. But like he really, again, feel real, very, kind of this like functionary, he's not the over the top, he's, not the over the top believer. He's not the one that wants to change the church. And he just wants to sort of get through this very sort of fraught process of choosing a pope. And, the way that weighs on him, I think Fiennes just brings across so wonderfully in this movie. The stories, the stuff I've been reading the last few days is, he didn't get nominated because people thought he had already had enough Oscars, and he's never actually won Best Actor.
Is he not nominated? Yeah, I think he's nominated, right? Just not. People said they didn't vote for him to win, right?
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. There's such a stupid story. They're like, and that's instead they voted for Adrian Brody, who
did win Best Actor. Yeah, famously. And again, I am sure Adrian Brody in The Brutalist is amazing. I'm sure that's probably going to be my favorite movie this year, but I have to see it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like put an asterisk up against everything that I feel like that's going to be, Best Director and all that stuff for me. But for what I have seen, I really, really like Fiennes in Conclave, and he's kind of the quiet, again, he's the soul of that movie in a lot of ways, and I just, he's mesmerizing. He's in just about every scene, and I'm very happy that he is. I've always liked him anyway, but he's great.
He's one of those guys. The thing you mentioned is, I'll act on the one point you said, because I think you said it all beautifully. It's like the job part of it that makes the performance so good, where sometimes he's just exhausted. By what he has to deal with. You know what I mean? He's not playing it as like, oh, this is this sacred, like, responsibility that I have all the energy of the Lord in myself to do it. He's always just like, I can't believe I've got to deal with all of this, like, bullshit sometimes. And I love that. Like, when he goes and talks to the new cardinal, right? A couple of the times.
Yeah,
just like an exhaustion
in
the way he's talking to him,
Well, it's an interesting character because he doesn't want to be Pope. No one really wants him to be Pope, but people vote for him to be Pope. Yeah. And he has to like go and talk to all those people like, please don't vote for me. The next, it's a series of votes because no one gets, the majority. And those conversations were just, I mean, again, that really terrific dialogue and just this very understated, he's a really nice, really good person in this world, that is like, there's some real sort of nasty personalities in the Vatican there. And he just sort of exudes this goodness.
That one Italian dude. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. The vape.
Oh God. I was like, wait, is that guy vaping? Tedesco. Yeah. Cardinal Tedesco. What a fun character that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ralph Fiennes is kind of the opposite of that. And I really like, he exudes this goodness that is not this godliness, but it's just this, he's a regular guy, like I said, in this sort of insane world of the very inner sanctum of the Catholic Church, and is just trying to be a good person in that world. And he speaks not as much as certain other characters in this. And there's just moments, it's acting with his eyes, it's acting with the, just reactions to other characters that I just think is so good in this movie.
Yeah, he's great in this movie. He's great in this movie.
I honestly, I didn't know what to do with this category. I saw that movie 2 nights ago, and I knew we were doing the show, and I was like, I don't fucking know who the best actor is this year. It's probably Adrian Brody. It might still be, but I'm really glad I saw Conclave, just so I could talk about him.
Yeah. So my nominees are Sebastian Stan, A Different Man; Timothée Chalamet for Dune Part 2 and A Complete Unknown; Justice Smith for I Saw the TV Glow; Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing; and Josh O'Connor for Challengers. My winner, it was really close for me. The top 3 that I read, Sebastian Stan, Timothée Chalamet, Justice Smith, I was having a really difficult time picking between the 3 because they all bring so much to the table. But I gotta give it to Timmy Chalamet for Dune Part 2 and A Complete Unknown.
See, I think that's unfair. You have to pick a movie.
No, I'm doing like the New York Critics Circle thing where they do all the time, man. Are you going to impugn the Critics Circle?
I'll never be part of it. So that's like the Vatican in its own way. So,
well, I mean, if I was going to pick one of them, I'd probably pick A Complete Unknown for the 2 of them, even though I think both performances are really wonderful. But even as I say this, I'm having second thoughts about my pick. And no, you know what? I'm changing my pick. It's a real La La Land Moonlight situation right now.
Well, that's not really what happened.
No, I know. I mean,
in the middle of the show, they're like, no, wait, this movie's better. Wait, all right, come back.
We've gone too long. No, this white man can't invent jazz. No, I'm going to go with Sebastian Stan for A Different Man.
Wow, okay. I'm so glad you liked that movie as much as I did. I really, really liked that movie.
So I don't think I liked the entirety of the movie as much as you did, but I think
just that you have enough respect for it to have mentioned it as many times as you have is
the performances in it are undeniable to me. Sebastian Stan really surprised me. I mean, I've always liked Sebastian Stan. I liked him in the Marvel movies. I've liked him in like the other things that he's been in, obviously. But
he's nominated for The Apprentice, right?
He's nominated for The Apprentice.
Haven't seen, but
no, I haven't seen it. I'm never going to watch it.
No, me either. I know what that movie is. I get it.
There's a different universe in which I would have watched that movie, but it's not the universe we're currently living in. The Different Man is never going to get nominated for Best Actor. Like that, like it's just the kind of movie that I don't think the Academy is going to look at unless you're someone like Demi Moore in The Substance, right? Who they're like, whoa, Demi Moore, we know Demi Moore. You're not going to get Sebastian Stan for A Different Man. He's not big enough to carry that movie, I think, to an Oscar nomination. But what I love about the performance and what I think is so interesting about the movie in general, right, is that you mentioned this idea, right? You're talking about the script, right? About you thought it would just be about like body image, and it really ended up being something totally different. And I think it slots into this very fascinating like style of story, which is about the holy shit. That's a giant spider. Hold on a second. Keep it in. That's never happened on the Oscar stage. Anyway, I'm fitting.
Oh man, I feel like if something could save the Oscars, it would be a giant spider.
Like a Jack Nicholson killing a spider. Sebastian Stan. Anyway, Sebastian Stan. But anyway, the movie fits in this very interesting category of story, which I really appreciate, which I think is becoming a more accepted and in vogue story type, which is that, you want to initially believe, right, that this guy, the only thing that's holding him back from being the person that he could be is this unfortunate physical
physical deformity
that he has, right?
Yes.
And he has all this stuff where he talks about how people treat him and how he's scared to talk to people and all this kind of stuff. And, what you learn in the movie is that it's really, yes, that's part of the equation, obviously. But I think really what the movie is telling you is like, there's so much more to the equation than just this, right? And and what happens to him when he becomes looks like Sebastian Stan, right? Is that you fully realize that he sucks, as a person in a lot of ways, right? Just sucks as a person, and there's nothing to hide it anymore, right? He doesn't have what he think of as an excuse, and so he starts creating and more excuses, right, for why things aren't going the way they're supposed to go for him, right? And you get this, this sort of like mirror, right, with the Pearson character who is showing kind of what you could be, even if you look a certain way, right? And the way Stan is able to sort of transition between those two sort of places, right, where, because you do, and I think part of it is the movie is definitely saying to you, like, yeah, you think this guy is like sweet and special because you
very badly want to sympathize with him,
and you feel guilty.
He has to work hard to make him unsympathetic, and he does it. I agree.
Yeah, and the movie's telling you are feeling guilty about the way this guy looks, so you are bringing something to it that isn't there. And once he looks like Sebastian Stan, you don't have that to fall. You don't have that to fall back, and where you're like, wait a second, this guy sucks. Like, what is he doing? And Stan is so good because the physicality of the performance when he's wearing all the makeup and everything, he doesn't lose it when he's out of the makeup, right? When he's walking around as like beautiful man, like he doesn't lose that physicality. You still feel that person right in there in a lot of ways, which I think is such a great thing about the performance. And there is really just true pain and pathos in his performance. But what I also really like is that what I like about the movie the most is that it delivers strong themes, but doesn't do it in like a sad, depressing, chew over the face with it mode. It's funny. The movie is pretty funny.
It is. It's a surprisingly entertaining movie.
Yeah.
And, it's got some noir aspects about it. I think that's kind of what made me want to see it, but it's not really that.
No.
It's a little more, it's a little more of a human story, I guess, than that, and more of a meta story than that. Not what I was expecting out of it. Yeah, he's terrific in it, and it's a movie. I feel like it's maybe the most underrated movie. Like, it got pretty good reviews and played for a while in theaters, but I feel like that's the one that is maybe the ripest for rediscovery from the past year. And, Sebastian Stan is probably going to continue to be a pretty big star for a while. So I hope people go back and watch A Different Man. It is just a really, really fascinating thing. And I, really, really liked it.
Yeah. Talking about my obviously runner-up, Timothée Chalamet.
Yes.
We talked about him a little bit in Dune Part 2. Again, could be it's easy to get lost in a performance like that. We have to be a center of a giant science sci-fi epic where you're playing like, white savior, messiah type character.
Iconic character, yeah.
Yeah, and he doesn't. Again, he's more than anything else, he's an incredibly smart actor with how he picks his projects and how he goes about, taking on those projects. And he picked this as his franchise, right? And you can tell right there that he has a level of intelligence about picking projects, right?
Because he would be really good in a superhero movie, right?
Yeah,
like
he'd be great.
He's a good actor. This very fresh-faced, all-American looking,
charismatic as hell. He could coast. He could definitely coast.
There's an alternate universe where he's Peter Parker and he's great as Peter Parker.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
But I'm so fucking glad. Like you said, he picked this as his franchise.
Yeah,
I'm so glad he picked this as his franchise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's a more intelligent type of movie, and he's a more intelligent. Like Bones and All. One of my favorite movies, was definitely my favorite movie of the year it came out. I think it was 22. He's so good in that. And I think the backlash, the Chalamet backlash, my wife hates this guy and I don't know why. Like, she does not want to watch any movies that he's in and I don't understand it. I don't know if it's like a looks thing, whatever it is. I feel like there's a lot of people who feel the same way as she does about him. And I wish people would come around to Timothy Chalamet. Those who are, who is this pretty boy playing Bob Dylan in this movie? He's great. Everything I've seen him in, and there's so many movies that he's been in that I've heard he's great in, like Call Me by Your Name. Need to see that. What's the other one? There's another like very prominent Timothy Chalamet role that everyone knows him from, and I mean,
he's in the two of the Gerwig movies. He's in Lady Bird, and he's in Little Women.
Lady Bird. Yeah.
He's great in Little Women. The thing about him is, like, I think what you're saying, though, I think is people don't see the movies, have an idea in their head about who he is.
So. Yeah.
And I had that same idea before I really started watching the movies. I was like, oh, he's just like the next, like, heartthrob, pretty boy actor. And then I watched him in those two Gerwig movies, and I was like, oh, wait a second. He's just like a good actor. He's a great actor. Yeah. And, he said he won the SAG award for A Complete Unknown. And he gave this speech, which I thought was just...
Are you talking about the greatness speech?
Yeah, the greatness speech, which I was like...
I really liked that.
I loved it because, like, that's what you want from the people who are in the position in the industry to be the leaders in the industry. You want someone saying something like that. You want someone being like...
It's not the most politically correct thing to say,
No.
But I think we need performers and directors and creative people who are willing to say, I'm not here to like defer to other people. I want to be the best in the business. And great. You know, I think he really could be.
I understand the position.
I didn't take that as cockiness at all.
No.
I took that as, a real just sort of dedication to the craft.
Yeah.
I hate that he's dating a Kardashian. That kind of undercuts a lot of that. But, they'll break up, and then I think he'll be in a much better place.
I really like performers, artists, whatever, that are like, I understand the position I have been lucky enough to gain. Not that he hasn't put hard work in, but it's a ton of luck. And I am going to not run away from being the biggest, the best actor that's there. I'm running towards it, right? I'm running towards it, and I take responsibility, the responsibility that's a part of being that person, right? I'm going to care about what projects I'm making. I'm going to care about how those projects are made. All this, who's my co-stars are, all of that stuff. That's the classic, big actor, movie star shit that we've been missing for a lot of years. Yeah. And I feel like this new crop of big stars understands it way more than I think the last crop, did. And I think that's really great, and I look forward to seeing what he does from years to come. I mean, he's amazing in A Complete Unknown. He's great at the singing, obviously the acting is wonderful. It's fully believable performance. He's just, out of this world good. Justice Smith, just quickly, who's a young actor I also really, really like a lot. And I saw the TV Glow. Again, it's a very weird, small, not showy performance in many ways. And it's a very sad performance in all these ways. It's really about a guy who just like wants to be something else and doesn't know how to, stake his claim and be something else. And I'm obviously not going to spoil anything, but the final scene of the movie like broke me in two, the way that he performed it. Like, he's just so good. It's
really interesting because a lot of what I've heard about the movie is that it's very ambiguous and that it's very like there's no sort of moments like that.
It is ambiguous, but even though there are the overall like what's happening in the movie, what's the truth, what's fiction, whatever is obviously it's very Lynchian in that way. It's very much like just like perceive what's happening in the moment and don't worry about what happens before or after, all that kind of stuff. But there's a scene near the end of the movie where all of the themes of the movie basically are playing out like in him in one moment, and just devastating in a way that not like I'm crying, but like devastating way where you're like, oh my God, like to be this person, to be in this person's head right now, it just seems like a terrifying place to be in a lot of ways, I don't want to say too much about it, but it's just an unbelievable performance. It really blew me away. Coleman Domingo and Sing Sing, one of those performances you watch sometimes and you're like, is this the best actor? Like even of those things where
he's great. He was in Drive Away Dolls this year.
Oh, really? Okay.
He plays, kind of an antagonist role in that. He's a lot of fun. Again, screen presence. He's totally got it.
And Sing Sing it's really difficult because Coleman Domingo is, I wouldn't say he's normally a very subtle, small actor. He's usually a very big screen presence type of actor, although amazing, right? And could play all shades and motions of everything. But he's playing up against mostly real prisoners. Mostly the real people from the real project are in this movie, are his co-stars. And so it would be very easy for no matter how good the actor is, to seem false in that scenario. And he just doesn't. He feels real. He feels like he belongs. He feels part of this. And it's just a soulful, amazing performance. And Josh O'Connor in Challengers is just like dirtbag perfection in the movie. He's one of those actors who I feel like he's got a lot of buzz going on, like from a lot of small projects a lot of people haven't seen a lot of. I'd never seen him in anything before.
I've never seen him in anything.
And then I was like, I don't get what the thing is with this guy. And then you see him like 2 minutes in Challengers, and you're like, oh, I totally get it. Really, again, could be a performance that could be very stereotypical, could be very in a box, but he brings so much to it. Just a fantastic movie, a fantastic performance. Is there anybody from your list we haven't talked about yet, Nick?
I don't think so. I think we covered them all. Yeah, no, because I had the short list.
Oh, that's right. Okay. My runners up, just so my kind of honorable mentions: Josh Hartnett in Trap, Michael Keaton in Goodrich, Jesse Plemons in Kinds of Kindness, Jesse Eisenberg in A Real Pain, and Nick Holt in Juror Number 2, or kind of my runners up, or my honorable mentions for that one. Juror Number 2 is notable because I think it's really the first time Nick Holt has ever been truly successful as like the center leading man, normal leading man guy of movie. Most of the time I think that he's really good at playing like kind of freaks and weasels, that's where he really, but the Juror Number 2, it's like center of the movie leading man stuff with a little bit of weasel in it. So that like, I think really solidifies it, but it's a really good performance. Really great year for Nick Holt.
Great Nick. No, Nosferatu also.
Yeah. He was on my short list for like supporting actor in that one. Really, really great performance in that one. All right. Best actress. I think this is you, Nick. Were you nominees first?
I didn't even bother with this one. I kind of knew exactly who it was going to be.
Who was going to win? So you do nominees. You want me to do my nominees first then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one kind of runner-up that like I don't.
Okay, well, you can save it for after I do my nominees. So
okay, yeah.
My 5 are Nell Tiger-Free in The First Omen, Lily Rose Depp in Nosferatu, Mikey Madison in Anora, Zendaya in Challengers, and Cynthia Erivo in Wicked. So who was your runner-up, I should say, and then let's see who your winner.
Well, I guess 2 runners-up, because Lily Rose Depp also, I just wasn't sure what category to put her in, and I kind of didn't think that was a leading performance.
I mean, she's the lead actress of the movie.
She is, but she's not the...
Who else would be the lead? Who's the lead then?
Supporting character.
No, she's the lead of the movie.
Well, it's Nicholas Hoult and Skarsgård, but whatever.
No, Nicholas Hoult is not the lead of the movie.
And I'm sorry, I forgot Willem Dafoe also. Put him in supporting actor, and he's so good in that movie.
I also think Aaron Taylor Johnson is good in Nosferatu, playing like a weird character. The stuff he's also best at is playing weird supporting characters, not lead characters. He's terrible at playing lead characters. Really good like in Tenet and in Nosferatu and even like The Fall Guy. He's all playing like these weird, low supporting performances that I think really work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my only nominee, and certainly is far beyond, but Margaret Qualley in Driveway Dolls, a movie that like no one seems to talk about, no one seems to care about. I think she's so fucking funny in that movie.
It's Margaret Qualley, double nominee for you.
Yeah. Which I've always thought she was great, but
too bad she's not a good looking person.
Yeah, really, it sucks. I actually, I hate the term Nepo baby, and they started saying that about her, and I was like, who is her parents? I didn't even know. She's Andy McDowell's daughter.
Andy McDowell's daughter, yeah.
Didn't know that. Like, and I feel like she didn't coast on that.
I'm sure she got jobs if she was Andy McDowell's daughter. It's fine. I don't think it's like, look, this is the truth of all professions.
Well, I didn't know.
You didn't know, but the studio executives know. That's the point, Nick. It's not about you knowing. Like I don't think Lily Rose Depp is getting the audition for Nosferatu if her last name isn't, Depp. But that doesn't mean she's not great in it. It's just like this is another thing where people really focus on this stuff a lot, and I get it. I get the idea, but when in all industries, especially craft industries, whether they are famous people or they're just like normal jobs that you don't hear much about. Many times the children of the people end up going to that same profession and being successful. It's just what happens, and I think people just need to get over it a little bit.
Agreed. And especially when they're good,
Exactly.
Gwyneth Paltrow is an example of that, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, Margaret Qualley in Driveway Dolls, just a really, really fun movie. I mean, it's not an Oscar movie in any way. It's kind of a trifle. It's Ethan Coen and his wife, Trisha Cook, I think her name is.
Okay.
He wrote it. They wrote it together. He directed it. It's not a Coen Brothers movie, but it definitely has the energy of a Coen Brothers movie, but also this interesting, queer feminist thing that Trisha Cook brought to it. And Margaret Qualley is the main character in this. And she just fits into that universe so perfectly. She's just this fast talking Southern accent, scheming sort of character. She's so much fun. She's hilarious. Her comedic timing is really, really great. It's a really fun character. The other half of the couple that's at the center of that movie is Geraldine Viswanathan, who's also really great in it. There's some great, supporting performances. As I said, Coleman Domingo is really good in it. Matt Damon's in like a couple of scenes. He's hilarious. Pedro Pascal is in like about half a scene. Real funny also. Highly underrated movie. Weird, quirky, very nice, very silly, one of my favorite movies I've talked about a lot is Raising Arizona, which I just watched again today because it's always my first screening in class. And I love that movie so much. And Margaret Qualley's character in Drive-Away Dolls, she could fit into the universe of that movie. It is a similar sense of humor. And I just think she brings, a really fun energy to it. And I really, really liked her in that. So she'll be talked about for the substance a lot. I feel like no one even remembers that Drive-Away Dolls existed. It came out either just before or just after Love Lies Bleeding. And they are in some ways kind of similar movies about these, female couples at the center of like a noir sort of plot. Love Lies Bleeding is definitely the darker and weirder one. Drive-Away Dolls is the more silly, fun, road movie kind of. So they're similar, but also very, very different. I liked them both very much. I think they're both, worth seeing. And especially if you like her, she's just a lot of fun in this movie. And I enjoy that performance.
She's also in Kinds of Kindness. She had a big year, Margaret Qualley.
I think I'm watching that movie soon, by the way.
She was on some talk show and she was like, you had a big year. She's like, yeah, but a real rough year for my family being able to see any movie that I'm in. Yeah. Not a good year for the parents to see the movies that I'm in. Anyway.
Andie MacDowell seems cool.
Yeah, whatever.
She gets it.
Yeah. So what was your winner?
Demi Moore in Substance, of course.
Oh, okay.
What a fucking performance there's nothing I could say about it that hasn't already been said. I was kind of expecting it. I went into it like, I know this is going to be great. This is probably going to be my pick for Best Actress. And, it's daring, but it's also funny. And it's like I couldn't imagine anybody else in that role. And it is because the premise is kind of generic, even though the movie that plays out from that premise is not, any sort of actress of that age. This is her, it's got some kind of Sunset Boulevard vibes in some sense. And she's kind of doing a little bit of that, but also in her own way. Like she does feel like someone who kind of came of age in the 80s and the early 90s, which she actually was. The character is not exactly her. It's not a thinly veiled version of her.
No, not even at all, really.
But you can feel some of it feels very real, even though the movie is very, very over the top. And I think what she brings to it is a little bit of groundedness to something that is insane in a lot of ways and is purely satirical, and we're not meant to take it seriously. Yet there's moments of real pain and regret and longing and sadness in that movie. And I think a lot of that comes through in that performance. So she's fantastic. She's obviously going to win for it.
She is going to win.
Good for her.
Really kind of crazy that she's going to win.
And
cool.
She still looks great.
She looks awesome.
I know that this movie is about, the perils of getting old in Hollywood, but we should get over that because she is still an absolutely beautiful person.
She's stunning.
And
you're like that guy she meets on the street who's like, you're still the most beautiful girl in the world.
No, I'm not like that guy. How dare you?
I'm more like the motorcycle guy. All right, so
that guy's a dick.
That guy's a real big dick.
Guy. Yeah.
Once again, I can't fight my feeling. My winner is Cynthia Erivo for Wicked.
Okay.
One of these things where there are a few moments in that movie. Forget about her voice, which is she's got one of the great voices maybe of all time. Truly, she's just like a legend. Amazing voice. Like this part that is very difficult to sing. When you listen to her in the movie, it feels like she's got, you could put it in like football terms when they kick a long field goal. They're like, oh, that would have been good from 80 yards. Like that's what it feels like when she performed this part. Like she's got more in the tank to give, even though she's given like such an amazing vocal performance. But really the thing that nails it for me is there are these couple of moments where, especially this one scene where she kind of shows up at this place and she's kind of getting laughed at. And it's really the moment in the movie where like the two main characters go from like enemies to friends, basically, where she's sort of embarrassed but in her kind of embarrassment, she's like, kind of like, fuck them. I'm just going to they're going to laugh at me. I'm going to just kind of go over the top with it. And she's like doing this. Everyone's like laughing at her and she's dancing. And Galinda kind of comes out to sort of like finally be like, this is my fault that this is happening to you. I'm going to kind of like put my sort of like reputation on the line to sort of help you. And there's this moment where they kind of touch hands, like they have their, and the look on Cynthia Erivo's face, like her eyes, just her eyes, you can see every moment of pain that this person has had since they were born, you know, being laughed at, being ostracized, you know, no one ever kind of extending a hand to her, all of that pain kind of like flooding up out of her in this one moment. And again, the movie is ridiculous. It's a prequel to Wizard of Oz about the Wicked Witch of the West. And it only works as a movie because of the performances from these main characters and these lead actors who are able to ground it into something where you believe there is a relationship between these two people and that relationship has importance, right? And in that moment, you forget, right, that you're watching something that has such a crazy premise, and it's just two people connecting on a level, for one of which, and really for both of them, has never happened to either one of them before, right? And that moment, I was just like, oh my God, like this is like performance of the year for me. You know, it really, really got me. And there's a couple of moments kind of like that throughout the movie, but that is really the linchpin, I think, of the movie for me in many ways, and just really a tremendous performance from her. It was a really great performance here, I think, for actors in general. I just want to say quickly, Zendaya has shown up twice now. She's double nominated for me, supporting and in lead. She's amazing in Challengers. A completely different role than Johnny, right? Just this sort of like, it's almost like if the teacher from Whiplash was a tennis coach. You know, she's not that intense or mean, but she's that way in different ways, right? In different ways. Just really wonderful in the movie, and in a really mean way. Like, you know, and not in the way you're used to seeing her in movies where there's like this soulfulness to it that kind of brings you to her side, you know?
Usually.
Likeable, so likable. She is likableness, but she's doing that thing which I love, where she's like kind of turning that persona inside out, right? And it's kind of like the toxic part of that, sort of being able to draw people in like that. What if you weren't a nice person, right? What if you were kind of like this, you know, just ambitious, sort of like, but angry, you know, bitter, jealous person, you know what I mean? And it's like really, really great performance. You know, all three of the lead actors are just fantastic in that movie. Mikey Madison for Honora, obviously, she's nominated for an Oscar. We've heard a ton about her. I think she just, it could be a performance that, it could be exceptionally annoying performance, and she somehow kind of like threads the needle almost kind of perfectly with it. Lily Rose Depp in Nosferatu. I mean, if you're going to give a reward for most acting in a movie,
no one writhes quite like Lily Rose Depp in Nosferatu. Yeah.
And she's one of those people who like really didn't, my sort of arms were crossed about her. You know, I was like, come on, like Johnny, I'm done with Johnny Depp for one thing. So she gets kind of like the shake off from that, right? But it's like, come on, like she can't actually be good. You know, that was kind of the feeling for me, you know, and she was great. So I had to kind of uncross my arms, like, okay, like you're good in this movie. And my last one, which I think is kind of like my weirdo pick, which is Nell Tiger-Free from The First Omen. She's the lead, obviously the lead actress in that movie. And I just think she's wonderful in it. And it's one of those people like, I'd never seen her before in anything. And it's just this kind of bizarre, really inward performance in many ways, but a performance with a lot of pain and a lot of, you know, a vast amount of emotions. And like those moments where she's mostly kind of very buttoned up, but those moments, especially like when she goes out with her, that roommate of hers or whatever, and she kind of lets go a little bit, there's like this playfulness and, you know, and stuff in that performance as well in those moments. I think it's just a great performance, and a movie that I think we talked about a couple times tonight, that I think a lot of people probably just like kind of like were like, no, I don't care about this. Either I don't care about The Omen, I don't even know what it is, you know, or like we were talking about, I don't want to see a prequel to The Omen. Like who gives a shit about that? But really,
it's a great movie in the sense that like if you've never seen The Omen, it still works pretty much
absolutely,
perfectly.
yes.
So that's kind of cool about it as well. You're almost making me want to see it again, because I think I saw it expecting very little. It was so much better than I expected. So I was like, this is a good movie. You're making me think back and like, maybe it's a great movie.
Yeah,
maybe
it's borderline great movie for me. Yeah. Borderline great movie for me.
I think I want to reevaluate it. Not because I didn't like it the first time, but I think I might like it even more a second time.
Yeah.
Which for a fucking horror prequel, I will tell you, I don't know if you're familiar with the show Channel Zero.
No, but that's the director's like other thing, right?
Arkasha Stevenson. Yeah, she did season 3, and it is quite something. It's one of the last Rutger Hauer performances, also. So check that out. It's
I'll
on
definitely
Shudder.
check it out. I like she'll come up.
Not my favorite season of the show, but a pretty good one.
So just quickly, some runners up in Best Actress for me: Anna Taylor-Joy for Furiosa, Kelly Spaney for Alien Romulus, Lupita Nyong'o for Quiet Place Day One. Actually, I think that's not a movie I love, but I think her performance is like elevates it like pretty high to me, more in the substance, obviously. And Kirsten Dunst in Civil War is up there for me as well. All very close to making the 5. All right, Best Director. You have nominees. You have 5 nominees.
I have nominees. This is a tough one for me.
Director's always tough.
Yeah, Coralie Farge for The Substance.
Okay.
Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2. Robert Eggers for Nosferatu. Jesse Eisenberg for A Real Pain.
Nice.
And Aaron Schimberg for A Different Man.
That's a great list, Nick. That's a great 5.
It is a great list, and it was very hard to pick.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I love my choice, but I chose it, and I'm going to stick with it.
Okay, I want to read my nominees before you do your pick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2. Luca Guadagnino for Challengers. Robert Eggers for Nosferatu. Jane Chobrun for I Saw the TV Glow. And George Miller for Furiosa, a Mad Max saga.
Thank you. Thank you for finally saying the full title after the colon.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I haven't been saying it all the time.
It's all right.
I
was being sarcastic.
Yeah.
I wish you hadn't said it.
My pick probably is obvious from the other picks I've done, but it's Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2. It's crazy pants to me that he didn't get nominated for an Oscar for the movie. It's like the scale, scope, and difficulty of making a movie like this, and to do it with the aplomb that he does it with it feeling so nearly effortless, even though obviously it's a huge amount of effort, and being equally good at the big, huge set pieces and also the character little stuff, being willing to be weird for a subject matter that is very weird, but you could see very, very, very quickly a studio being like, you remember what happened with the last one? Let's just like tone down the weird like a little bit. Like, let's just simplify this thing down. And him being like, no, this is what it's going to be. Like, he's seemingly been the guy, right, who's been like, no, I'm not scared to do the Blade Runner sequel. I'm not scared to do the Dune movies. And I think that's great. Again, much like the Timmy Chalamet thing we're talking about, he has that part of him that's like, no, I can do this. Like, I'm not scared of it. And I think we had a generation of filmmakers who, even though I like, let's say, The Force Awakens, right? J.J. Abrams felt scared to direct a Star Wars movie because he was like, but like, it's my favorite movie. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, what am I supposed to do? Yeah. And Villeneuve just doesn't have that in him. He's like, no, I'll do it. Like, yeah, I love those movies. I think they're perfect, but I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do now. And I think,
and the results end up so much better. I love his Blade Runner sequel, and I love Blade Runner.
Yeah,
like many people do. And it's not just it's not fan service.
Yeah.
He really feels like he's putting something of himself in it, and it works. He's never made a bad movie. I've even gone back. I don't know if you've seen Incendies.
I have not seen Incendies,
which is one of his non-English language movies that he made before his kind of big.
That's like right before he came over, right? Incendies.
Yeah, I think it's the last one he made before he started doing stuff here.
Yeah,
it is one of the most devastating movies I've ever seen. I do not recommend watching it unless you're in a very, very good mood that you want to have be in a
turn it
transfer
around
to like the worst. It has just a twist that is I don't even want to think about it.
Right.
But what an incredible piece of work from him as a much younger person, and the fact that he's still doing stuff of that caliber is pretty incredible.
Yeah. And the fact that he went like, you know what? I originally was going to do something between Dune Part 2 and Dune Messiah, but he goes, you know what? Like, no, like we need to finish. Let's finish it.
The job.
Let's do
like
it.
That instinct as well.
That's a great instinct for him to have, to not wait, to not let like the fire die down, to not like all that kind of stuff, not let the time, let things happen to whatever, like he striking while the iron's hot. I think it's just really good instinct as well for him. So he's my pick. He's been my pick since I saw the movie in March. So it's, it's one of those things where it kind of just sat there and it didn't move, even though a lot of great filmmakers, I saw a lot of great movies from great filmmakers.
I agree 100% with everything you said, and certainly, he would have been a great choice. I do think my list is pretty good here. There's some very well-directed movies this year. I'm going to give it to Eggers for Nosferatu.
Okay.
But like the smallest, and here is my reasoning, and you're going to think this is fucking stupid, and it might be. Villeneuve doing Dune Part 2 Like, he kind of showed us, like, he's already played in that world before. The first Dune movie is incredible. Also, I think part two is better. But to me, the leap that Eggers took from making stuff like The Witch and The Lighthouse and The Northman to Nosferatu, which is an absolute epic in every sense of the word, and is really, we're talking about like sacred text in cinema. F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu is like one of, 1,000 years from now, when people are studying the ancient history of film, they're going to look at Murnau's Nosferatu. So, taking on Blade Runner and making a sequel to that is one thing. Taking this like text of horror movies and making a remake of it in 2024. That is a gutsy move, and I think he absolutely pulls it off here. What an incredible visual movie. The performances in it, as we talked about, Nicholas Hoult and Lily Rose Depp and even Aaron Taylor Johnson, my favorite Willem Dafoe. I just want him to be in every movie ever, and him and Eggers are boys, which I really like. More movies with the two of them, please. I was just so impressed with what he did with Nosferatu and the atmosphere he was able to conjure there. It is a much like Dune, which I feel the same way about. That is a world you live in for 2.5 hours, and I just don't want to leave it behind. And I think all of his choices were the right choices. I thought he was going to go a little more over the top and a little more graphic and gruesome, and he kind of doesn't, and I appreciate that. But there are some moments of just grimness and darkness that are, I've seen darker movies thematically than Nosferatu, but I don't know that I've seen many that just sort of get under your skin with just how horrific everything is. There's a scene late where they visit a crypt. And it's just, the atmosphere is so oppressive and so just overwhelming. Like, that is really a directorial thing. And I really like choices he made there. And, again, to take on Murnau and make something that stands on its own and really beautifully pays tribute to that, I gotta give it to him.
Nick, I think that is a great pick. No, Eggers is very close for me. I echo everything you said. And I'll say this, Eggers, and tying this into Luca Guadagnino for Challengers, thing I like about both those movies, and they're just in different ways, both movies are, even though they have acerbicness to them and they have like a roughness to them, are very sexy movies as well. And you don't just see big movies anymore being made that are sexy, right? And Challengers is hella sexy.
Yeah, Nosferatu weirdly is too.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yes,
I
absolutely.
Agree. Yep.
Yeah. And I really like that. I will just say, like, if you haven't seen Challengers, and I think a lot of people didn't see it, but again, the tennis stuff, unbelievable. The match point sequence, which ends the movie, is this long, protracted, like almost like Rocky, like, volley between the two tennis players, which isn't really realistic as a tennis move. It's just like Rocky, where like if someone was punched that much, they'd be dead. But it doesn't matter because it's this long volley intercut with, this sort of tension, personal tension that built over the years, and just comes to this amazing crescendo, which is, don't get me wrong, it's elevated, it's maximalist, it's a little over the top, but it's just this, you basically are just like, you get out of your seat and you're like, yeah, at the end of it,
Which is impressive, because tennis is not the most exciting sport.
No, but he makes it damn exciting. And makes it.
I say this as a huge fan of professional golf, so what do I know? But
there's a lot of sexual tension in the tennis as well, which is really what makes it play. It's almost like they're having it's almost like a sex scene, but it's a tennis scene. It's hard to explain. Got to see the movie. Just one of those. Just like, it's such an entertaining movie. So well made. Jane Showbrun for I Saw the TV Glow. We talked about all the stuff. I mean, visually, it's unbelievable with such a small scale, but so much really fascinating visual motifs and decisions and mixings of styles, and I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm being very cagey about the way I'm saying, but in this mix of sometimes romantic and gentle, sometimes very naturalistic, and sometimes just like utterly bizarre and impressionistic, right? It's just this mix of all of these things, and they all work really, really well, together. So big ups for that one. And then George Miller for Furiosa, Mad Max Saga. I know nobody's pick over Fury Road, obviously, but still, I just think it's like an unbelievable feat of direction. The man is like 90 years old, and he makes movies with, sequences in it that are just unbelievable. Like, it's just like, I'm like, how did you make this movie? And there's so few movies that you can say that about anymore, where you're like, I don't understand. Like, how did you do this? And that happens in this movie, much like it did in Fury Road, right? It happened in Fury Road as well. But we're not going to get many George Miller movies, there's not many left, And so you got to give him his props when we get one. And I just did love that movie. I really did love that movie. So
Did you see the last one he did? Was it 3,000 Years of Longing?
I didn't see
something
3,000
like
Years
that?
of Longing. No.
I've heard it's not that great, but like between Fury Road and Furiosa, he made this movie that sounded really interesting, and I really like his work, and I think I'm going to check it out. I
I'm
feel
definitely
like
gonna watch it at some point.
it might be one of those movies that I will defend, even though nobody else likes it. But I don't know.
Do you want to highlight anybody else on your list? I know you talked about Eisenberg, right? Was on your list, right?
Yeah, Eisenberg, Rose Glass for Love Lies Bleeding.
Yeah.
Liked that a lot as well. Just an interesting movie and something that kind of came out of nowhere. And Oz Perkins, again, Longlegs made some choices that I didn't like, but I think he is a fascinating director. I just saw The Monkey also, and
Oh, you saw it? Nice.
Yeah, it's great. It's a completely different movie from Longlegs. It's a very over the top. It is much more of a comedy than it is a horror film, but has a very distinctive style and a really fun sense of humor, and actually a guiding philosophy that I wasn't expecting. Like, that's a movie that has something to say that I think is a little hard to take, but also just a really interesting thing to ground a movie in. I'm a big Oz Perkins fan. Like I said, I love The Black Coat's Daughter. I'm the pretty thing that lives in the house or in the castle, whatever that's called. Also a very good movie. Just can't remember the title of it. Yeah, he's actually in The Monkey too, which is really fun. Yeah, and I just saw an interview with him today, and he looks so much like his dad.
He's also a Nepo baby.
Yeah. Yeah. What a fascinating person. Fascinating.
Yeah.
And he just, I love horror. I love genre movies. I think we had a very good year for genre movies,
yeah.
and I would throw Longlegs into that very much, even though I disagreed with some of the choices. But yeah, I think he's like, if someone is going to make a horror movie that sort of gets to this level and gets nominated for Best Director or something like that, like, I don't know, I've said many times about Jordan Peele. I like everything he's done so far. I think he has like an all-timer movie, and I don't think Get Out is it, but I think he is going to make one that's like, this is one of the greatest things ever. I kind of feel the same way about Oz Perkins, so we will see.
I mean, that's lofty company to put Oz Perkins in, because I don't think Oz Perkins, I mean, again, I've only seen Longlegs, so I should say it, but, Jordan Peele, I mean, again, I feel like I'm one of those people that's not on an island, but like, I think Nope is a work of genius. And I know, yeah, I do. I really do.
I think the first third of Nope is a work of genius.
See, this is like, I think sort of like we talked about Sunshine, I think on the last episode we recorded, and we agreed about like the Switch and liking the Switch. I feel like it's a similar vibe with this, where people are like really into the beginning vibe, and then when the vibe switches, they get a little bit like turned off by it in Nope. But for me, it doesn't work like that. It like locks me in further, basically. Just a quick like runners up for me. Arash Stevenson just missed making my list for the first film.
Yeah.
A gorgeously directed movie. Like
I'm sorry that I didn't talk about like it's been a while. What did that come out? Like April, May?
Very early,
it was a while ago.
Yeah.
So I think I've forgotten it. But yeah, she's pretty fascinating. Again, horror is so lucky to have people like her and like Oz Perkins. Horror is really sort of legitimizing itself, I think, in a way that I really, really like.
Yeah. Beautiful looking movie. Eisenberg was close for me. I think that's a Real Pain is a movie where people overlook the director a lot because it just feels like very naturalistic and small, but it takes a deft hand to manage performances and that tone across a movie like that.
It is very carefully constructed.
It's very carefully constructed movie, so I don't think that should be looked down upon. Fede Alvarez for Alien Romulus, I just think like the kineticness of that, he gets it so well. I think he's a really good horror director. There's some story choices in Romulus that I don't love, but I think from a like filmmaking perspective, a really, really well-made movie. M. Night Shyamalan for Trap, Sean Baker for Anora, Alex Garland for Civil War. Those ones are back up. Civil War movie I really like quite a bit. But all right, so Best Picture, Nick.
Oh, it's the end of the night. Look at this. We're sweating through our tuxedos. And we've been in this place for 5 or 6 hours.
I know it's been 7 hours, but we're going on one more award. One of my least favorite Oscar jokes is how long has this been going on joke. I'm like, we know the ceremony is long. Like, this is the one time a year that we get to just talk about movies for 3 hours. Just stop complaining about how long it is.
Yeah, and you get those like specialty commercials from like Kodak or whatever that are all like, whatever they're advertising. Like, here's the history of movies. Like, fucking great. It's our Super Bowl.
Exactly.
And I love football. There's things about the Super Bowl that don't thrill me every year, but like, I'm never going to not watch the Super Bowl. I'm never going to not watch the Oscars. And it's the one night of the year where we get to sort of, our nerddom gets to really just flourish, and we get to enjoy it for a few hours. I agree.
Absolutely. All right, Nick, how many do you have for this list?
5.
You have 5? Okay, so why don't you do your 5, and then I'll do my 10.
Okay.
Okay?
And that's so many.
I could have done
Okay.
more. I had to whittle it down big time.
Right here. Sorry.
Okay.
Dune Part 2?
Okay. Do this
No,
basically. Let's do this in order of like your 5 to 1.
I didn't rank though.
You didn't rank them. What is wrong? Fine. Just do whatever, and then you pick your winner.
Okay. My 5 are Dune Part 2, Nosferatu, A Real Pain, Different Man. Sorry, I have 6. Dune Part 2, Nosferatu, A Real Pain, A Different Man, The Substance, and The Wild Robot.
Nice, very nice list. I like that list quite a bit. So I mean, it's like the Oscars, right? They don't always have 10. Sometimes they have 7. Sometimes they have 6. Sometimes they have 8.
Well, I was trying to limit it to either 5 or 10. I didn't have 10. I had 5 for a while, and I was like, oh, I forgot 1, and I put it on there.
Okay.
So yeah.
So my 10. So I'm gonna go 10 to 1 because I ranked.
Okay. Oh, you did rank them.
Yeah. Oh well, I have a running ranking all year, Nick. So it's not like it's just there. That's what I use Letterboxd for. I see a movie, I rank it, and I just throw it into a list, and then I just like reorder as I go. Every basically at least once a week, if not twice a week, I'm going in there being like, well, do I really? Yeah, well, I'm moving around. I like making lists, Nick. All right.
Clearly.
All right. And number 10, Trap. One more runner-up because I'm going to speak about this movie right now for the best director. Michael Gracie for Better Man is definitely a runner-up.
I'm surprised you haven't mentioned that yet. You love that movie.
I did, but there's not a lot to talk about in like normal categories.
Okay.
I'm about to talk about though. Number 10, Trap.
Best monkey, best CGI
Best
monkey.
CGI monkey. It's a big race this year, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Number 10.
Well, we had a Planet of the Apes movie.
Which
Yeah,
the monkeys look amazing in that movie.
Yeah.
Movie I like very pretty well. All right, number 10, Trap. Number 9, Better Man. Number 8, Wicked. Number 7, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Number 6, Nosferatu. Number 5, I Saw the TV Glow. Number 4, Sing Sing. Number 3, Challengers. Number 2, A Real Pain. And number 1, and my Best Picture winner, Dune Part 2.
Same here. So
Yeah.
we agree.
Like I said, in March, I was like, okay, the first movie I saw this year, and it just number one position on my Letterboxd list, and it never moved. It was just like everything. I was like, what is this slotting in? What is this slotting in? I will say A Real Pain came the closest to being like, I had a second in my mind where I considered like, dude, I like this better. And I was like, no, I didn't, but it's close,
I think my big 3 would be Dune Part 2, A Different Man, and A Real Pain.
Mm-hmm.
But I keep going back to just seeing Dune Part 2 in the theater, the night it came out. And it was just, an experience that I don't have as much, as I used to when I was a kid. And I want to have those experiences, like to just see something I've never really, even though it's a sequel, it's a second part of a movie I saw a couple of years ago. But just, the images and the performances and the story, everything just really grabbed me in a way that I don't think anything else this year did. And it's just, again, I love genre cinema. I love science fiction. And I love that you could do something on that big of a scale that is also, incredibly cerebral and thoughtful and has really interesting things to say, but also is just a kick-ass, spectacular blockbuster movie. I mean, to me, like that is, I shit on Hollywood as much as I sing the praises of Hollywood, but Hollywood at its best, like that is what it can do. And that is why I think it's the greatest, movie industry in the world. Like no one else can do that kind of stuff the way we do it here. And you gotta, give it all the props for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've talked about a lot of the movies on, my list already kind of extensively. We talked obviously a lot about Dune Part 2. I echo what you said. It's my favorite theater experience of the year. It's exactly the thing that, my 1 and 2 are really the two sides of my personality when it comes to the movies that I love, right? Which is that you have the biggest...
Same here. Yeah.
The biggest possible thing you can possibly do at Dune Part 2, and then this little character-driven, emotion-led movie in A Real Pain. Those are the two things that really the kind of movies I love. Like, last year, my favorite movie of the year was Past Lives, and it really much fits into the same sort of bucket for me as A Real Pain in many ways, where it's this like small but emotionally real, really well acted movie that really cuts towards, some of those like emotional truths of our lives. And like, that's definitely the two sides of me, which is like, give me the big crazy shit, that's really crazily well made with these amazing sequences and the really great ones obviously also are really good at like bringing you down on the ground with characters and really making you care about the characters. that stuff, but it's all big and, it's more dealing in like mythical, like sort of storytelling than it is dealing with like these small little moments storytelling. Love that stuff, And then what's the other stuff I haven't talked about really? I mean, I talked about Wicked. I talked about Furiosa a little bit. We talked about Nosferatu. So TV Glow, I talked about a lot. Sing Sing, really just again, it fits in that real pain category where it's just like, I was just almost crying the whole movie, and it's just like this like thing where it's really about more than anything else. It's about the importance of art and how it can make you transcend where you are and what you're feeling, whether that's in prison or it's just you feel a little stuck, in your life, right? It helps you make sense of things that are really, really difficult to make sense of. And it gives you a way to sort of release and feel emotions that otherwise you might, put into a bottle and keep somewhere else, Really beautiful movie, and I recommend everybody watch it. It's really, and its thing is like, but it's not oppressively sad or anything like that. It's got that bittersweet, but a lot of happiness to it as well. It's really about the joy of art and the joy of living and what we can make out of, life when we put our mind to it, basically. Really wonderful movie. And then Better Man, I haven't really talked about at all, which is the CGI Robbie Williams monkey biopic. Really some of the most audacious, filmmaking I've seen all year, 100%. Like, we talked about not really loving music biopics, and like this puts most of them to shame because it's just so vibrant and inventive and imaginative. And, obviously he's a CGI monkey the whole time. And if it had just been an actor the whole time, it would not have been half as interesting. Because you couldn't do as much with it. There's just stuff they do that you can only do with sort of like the magic of having this digital character. And it's one thing where this is the kind of time where it really works, where it fits and it makes sense and it elevates the movie and doesn't feel like it's a shortcut because they didn't want to film it in a real place, or whatever, or they didn't want to pay an actor, whatever it is. And when you hear about the story of how they filmed it, it's like crazy. Like, because like they had the actor kind of like, didn't have all the tracking dots on him or anything. He just had like a movement suit on, basically. And they had to paint him out of everything and put the CGI monkey in there because they wanted the actor on set because they wanted like the other actors to really react to him and be able to interact with him and stuff like that. And it's crazy because like, I feel like probably like 30 minutes in, the monkey almost becomes invisible to you. Like, you're not even thinking like, oh, this is a monkey. You think it for the beginning, obviously, but once you're in the reality of the movie, you're not really considering it anymore. And there's a couple of sequences.
The whole thing sounds like a Simpsons gag to me. Like, we're going to do this musical biopic, and he's going to be played by a CGI monkey.
Yeah, I know.
The character studio head guy's like, yeah, do it. That, like, I want to see it. Everything you've said about it has really pushed me toward wanting to see it. It's a shame that that's going to get remembered for just being like the biggest money loser of all time. And it's probably, like you said, a really interesting movie.
It is.
I think if people saw it, they'd really like it. And, maybe it's a future cult classic or something.
I think in 5 years, Nick, there's going to be a whole group of people that's going to keep growing and growing and growing. That's like, we did this movie dirty. And like, you guys should realize how good this movie is, and the performance.
I think people are going to see it for like the Morbius effect, and then it's going to actually be really good.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And, it's one of the things where, people are like, oh, why would I see that movie? I don't even know who Robbie Williams is. That actually makes the movie better to me. Because, like, okay. I know who Robbie Williams is. I knew, like, 2 songs, one of which isn't even in the movie. I didn't know anything about his life. I didn't even know he had, like, a drug problem or anything like that. I didn't know anything about him other than he had this song called Millennium that I liked when I was 15 or 14 or whatever the year it came out.
And you liked it because it sampled You Only Live Twice, because that's why I liked that song.
I didn't even know You Only Live Twice at that point. I just liked the song. I just like the vibe
because I was like,
song.
oh shit, he's sampling like one of my favorite 007 themes. Like, great. And then I knew he had a big coke problem, and I haven't thought about him since.
But there's several sequences. There's the rock DJ sequence where it's sort of like the group that he's in is sort of like breaking out, and they have this like long protracted like musical sequence where they're like changing costumes and the scenery's changing everywhere, and it's going from one. You can see them slowly growing, getting bigger. Really amazing. And I'm not going to spoil what it is, but there's actually like an action scene that happens near the end of the movie, which just, it deals with the thematic element that almost every musical biopic deals with, but does it in such a way that is so different and interesting that you're like, oh man, like this is getting to me the core of what all those movies are trying to do so much better than like the straight up like versions of those movies. And then the fucking end made me cry. I was crying at the end of the Robbie Williams monkey movie. And I was like, I don't even know. And all I could think of was like, movies fucking rock, man. Like movies rock. That's what made this movie made me feel like, because I was like, if you said this to anybody, they'd be like, that sounds like it's going to be terrible. And the fact that it works so well, it's just like, this is the magic of what movies can do, is that there is no idea on its face that's just bad. Like if you can have the right people behind it and the right intention behind it, the right execution, you can make something special like this out of an insane, concept. And also, it just looks great. Like the CGI is amazing in it, and it just is a great looking movie. Really, I can't recommend it enough. My only ding on it is that it's a little bit too long. Like it's like 2 hours and like 10 minutes or something like that. And it's like, that's too long for any music biopic, but also the CGI monkey music biopic, a little too long. If it was like 20 minutes shorter, it might have even got up a half a star for me, but still really a great experience.
Funny, like what you're saying about that kind of reminds me of what my thoughts were about Conclave, where again, it's about the execution. It's not about, whether you know who Robbie Williams is or you care about the inner workings of the Vatican.
Exactly.
That is why movies are magic, right? Like they take us to these places, they show us these things that maybe we're not immediately interested in them. And then, through things like direction and performance and visuals and everything like that, it becomes like, you just get absorbed in it like any other thing. I've been dying to see for months, which was Nosferatu for me, right?
Yeah.
Like I knew I was going to like that movie to some extent. Like I didn't know I was going to like it as much as I did, but there's the ones where you have the expectations and they meet or exceed the expectations. And then the ones where it's like, they just completely catch you off guard. And that was the experience I had with that movie. And I'm so excited to see this movie that no one seems to care about aside from like nothing you said makes me think I won't.
Yeah.
Not.
It just, and so. I was like, I really like a lot of this music. That was also what happened to me. I was like, I dig a lot of this music.
I'm interested to hear it because literally I know that one song.
So that was really cool.
Is that the one that's not in the movie though?
Yeah, the Millennium's not in the movie.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine. I also felt that way, but it's good.
We talked about it last night. I looked it up on Spotify. So I got in my car this morning. That was what came on. I was like, I'm going to listen to this whole song. I haven't heard this forever. Good song.
Yeah. So yeah, really, really, really good movie. From your list, Nick, I think you mentioned The Wild Robot. We haven't talked about The Wild Robot at all.
Yeah. What a lovely, sort of unlike any other animated movie I've seen recently. I mean, there's not a lot to say about it. It's just a very warm-hearted story that is not afraid to go to some pretty, emotional places.
Yeah, let's be fair. It's like crack for parents. It's like you couldn't sculpt a movie that is more like set to make a parent cry than The Wild Robot.
Yeah, but what a beautiful thing, because people are bringing their kids to it.
Yeah.
We took my daughter to see it. My wife loved it also. She's a kindergarten teacher, so she knew the book. I knew nothing about the story, so it was kind of a nice. It's a weirdly good science fiction movie. Also, for sure. About a machine that comes into consciousness, and this is what we want out of AI, right? That it takes care of us rather than just fucking murders us all.
Yeah.
And I think The Wild Robot kind of does show us a reality where that could potentially happen. But yeah, it's just it is a wonderful movie about parenthood. It's a wonderful movie about this idea. I'm getting a little choked up just thinking about it now. This idea that you raise someone and eventually you have to let them literally leave the nest. Because it's a gosling, duckling, or whatever.
Yeah.
Just a nice story, really beautiful. The visuals is sort of like, it's not a super realistic, now we can make basically photorealistic animated films.
Yeah.
And so once we kind of hit that point, that no longer becomes exciting. But when it kind of looks more like an impressionist painting, that's
the thing about that
that's
movie.
Really fun.
Yeah.
That's really, something that now that we have the capabilities to do that, I think I like that a lot better. So it has that. And I really liked it. I remember seeing the trailer of it, and, there's this action scene where, like, the bad robots come and they have to sort of defend the forest from them. And I thought it was going to be like a Fern Gully thing, I was expecting kind of a more straightforward movie than this was. And that's like 2 minutes of it.
Yeah, it's not a big part of the movie.
It's not even that exciting of a sequence, but there's some other stuff where animals have to survive the winter that I thought was just a lot more moving and is actually a much bigger part of the story.
Yeah, and
So
I mean, the story goes from like, that you said about like you have to re-raise this person, you put everything into them, and then the thing you have to do is, if you really love them, is to let them grow and let them move past you, right? And then it also deals with like, but then what do you do, right?
right.
What is your worth now in the
After
world?
your usefulness has expired.
Yeah, and I really love that, and I think again, I talked about Lupita Nyong'o.
Luckily, we're not quite at that stage
Not
yet,
yet,
so
but I
that's
definitely was
good.
fucking weeping the whole
Oh
time.
yeah.
What's funny because my son, a couple weeks ago, my whole family was sick, and my son had already seen the movie, and I hadn't seen it yet because he had gone to the movies with his cousin and stuff, and he was up and he couldn't fall asleep. So I was like, "Do you want to put the Wild Robot on?" He's like, "Yeah, sure. You haven't seen it yet." So I put it on, and we're watching it, and he falls asleep. Like, well, he can fall asleep, and my wife walks into the room because she went out on the couch to try to get some sleep while I was trying to help, my son fall asleep, and she comes in and she's like, "He's asleep. You can turn the movie off." And I was like, "No, I'm finishing this movie."
Yeah,
You know, so.
absolutely.
Just a really wonderful movie. And again, I mentioned her when I talked about Quiet Place Day One, but Lupita Nyong'o is the voice of the Wild Robot.
Yeah, she's great.
She's unbelievably good.
Really, really good vocal performance.
She's so good. One of my really, truly, I think, one of those people who is one of those, I think one of the great like actors and one of the most beautiful people on the planet, and just like doesn't get enough movies, to do. Pedro Pascal is the voice of the fox. And he completely
He's great.
It's invisible Pedro Pascal voice performance, because I didn't even know it was him until I looked at the credits. I didn't know. It's a really great voice performance from him. Just a really beautiful movie. Was there anything else on your list that we haven't really talked about throughout this show? I don't know.
No,
If
I
there's
mean, I had some pretty Different Man and Real Pain
We
and
talked about those
Substance,
things.
and we've covered all those. Yeah, it's a pretty conventional Best Picture list for me.
Not totally. Quickly, I just want to go over. I'll just run through, some of the other movies I loved this year that didn't make my top 10, but were close. The Wild Robot actually just missed my top 10. It was in my top 10 until yesterday, basically. So I got Wild Robot, Anora, very close to my top 10. Conclave, very close to my top 10. Civil War, A Complete Unknown. Flow, another animated movie that I really loved. Completely wordless animated movie. And you talk about art style, just like amazing visuals and art style to it. Really, really good movie. The First Omen, Alien Romulus, A Different Man, The Substance, Juror Number 2. I think those are all kind of like around 4-star movies for me I saw this year. About 21 movies I saw this year that I thought were truly, really great. And then just a couple add-ons really quick. Carry On, I really, really liked a lot. Just a fun kind of throwback feeling movie. Talking about throwback feeling movies, Goodrich, the movie that Michael Keaton, which is like this just nice like character dramedy that Keaton just rules in. It's directed by Talia Marie Shire, who's the daughter of Nancy Myers and Charles Shire, another Nepo baby, but a really, really good, heartwarming, just, nothing that you'd be like, oh my God, like I'm going to be talking about this movie for years, but just a movie where you watch it and you're like, oh, I really liked this movie. And it's like nice to see Michael Keaton just like in the center of a movie doing his thing, really, really good. In it, Kinds of Kindness, Long Legs, Hitman. Those are all, Twisters and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Those are all like 3.5-star, at least 3.5-star movies, for me. After that, I mean, I saw other movies I liked, but those are all kind of like much more qualified. And I don't have to go through every movie I saw this year, but.
Can I throw in one more kind of?
Yeah, of course.
I mentioned Driveway Dolls. I think it's a 3.5-star movie. Like I said, it's not quite top tier stuff, but it's a lot of fun. It's really enjoyable. And, it's short, it's breezy, it's a little bit subversive. It does have, some kind of interesting stuff going on. It's the Coen brothers making their movies together. They're never sexy, right? Like sex is not a thing in that world of the Coen brothers movies. It's Steve Buscemi bouncing up and down, a prostitute bouncing up and down on Steve Buscemi in Fargo is like about as sexy as those movies get. And it's certainly not that at all. And so Driveway Dolls, Ethan Coen and his wife making that kind of brings that to the table there. And I found it to be like a really fun movie that it was kind of exactly what I wanted it to be. The reviews were not good. And, I kind of wanted to see it anyway. And I thought it was really underrated. The other one I wanted to mention, because I do love horror, I love genre films. The director of one of my favorite horror films of all time from a few years ago, a movie called Caveat.
Okay.
Damien McCarthy is his name. I believe he's an Irish filmmaker, and he did his follow-up to that this year called Oddity. And
yeah, I haven't seen that, but I was interested in it.
It's really, really good. It's
Yeah.
a little bit smaller scale, not as interesting conceptually as Caveat is. Doesn't quite have the very distinctive. I mean, that's literally one of my all-time favorite horror movies. I just love it to pieces. I recommend it to everybody. This is, it's not a sophomore slump. It's not as good, but it's still one of the best horror movies I saw this year. And the performance, the lead performance, actress named Carolyn Bracken, who I'd never really seen before. She plays a dual role. I love dual roles. Those things that always kind of, someone playing two different characters in the same movie. It's just one of those things I really, really like. And she's terrific in it. There's some really fun imagery. The opening scene is kind of an all-timer. It's one of those movies, unfortunately, where it starts off so good that there's like nowhere else, it can't top itself, which I think is a problem in horror. You see a lot also.
Yeah.
But it's just really cool to see something new from him. Came out right around Halloween time and really enjoyable watch. Again, it was like 85-minute movies, so it's not going to take up a lot of your time. And if you like that kind of stuff, you can watch that and Drive Away Dolls in the space that you could watch like 2/3 of The Brutalist. So, so I had time to watch those two movies and I enjoyed them both very, very much.
Nice. I'll talk about, just quickly, I'll say my most disappointing movie of the year was Moana 2. Not because I thought it was going to be good by the time it was coming out, but because Moana is, I think at this point, probably, I think my favorite Disney animated film. And so
of all time?
Yeah.
Wow. I really like it too. But I don't know if I go quite that far.
Yeah. But for the sequel to my favorite animated film of all time to be really kind of like my second worst movie, the movie I enjoyed like the second least of the year, sucks.
Sure.
Just sucks, I mean, it's not as bad as Despicable Me 4, but that's a low
I did
floor.
see that. Yeah, that was a rough.
That was a bad movie. Surprises for me really quick, just I want to say, because these are never movies I talk about as far as like favorites, but Quiet Place Day 1 was a surprise for me because I'm not really like a Quiet Place person. Like I think the movies are fine. And so like a prequel to it wasn't something I was like totally interested, but there was like nothing else out. And my buddy who I see movies with was like, I really want to see it. And it's an IMAX. And I'm like, all right, let's go see it. It's fine. Like I have the AMC list. It's not going to cost me anything. Let's just go. And I enjoyed it. I think it is anchored by two really good performances from Joseph Quinn and Lupita Nyong'o. Who I think are both great in it. It loses me just the fact that like the Quiet Place thing, it's like only so much I can take of like and then somebody nearly bangs on something and a monster comes in. It's like, okay, it can't sustain. It's like a really good short concept. It's not a great like full movie concept, because like I don't want to like hear people whispering for an hour and a half. So there was that. But I was also surprised that though it had some juice to it, which I wasn't expecting. It just had one of those endings where they're like, and now this person got away, and I'm like, yeah, but they didn't get away because the whole fucking world is fucked. The world's over, guys. And I will just say, a big surprise to me was I liked Ghostbusters Frozen Empire more than I liked Afterlife. Not that I like either one of them very much, but at least Frozen Empire was like let's put a bunch of like comedians in this movie in New York City and have them fight ghosts. Like that was at least the premise of that movie, So like I liked it better. And in the Jason Reitman sort of like area, I was really disappointed by Saturday Night. The movie that it's kind of made in a lab for me to enjoy and to like be interested in, just put me off like big time. So I don't really like focusing on movies I don't like too much, but those are just things that like I really thought some of them I was gonna like and didn't.
I can't think of any major disappointments. Probably because I just avoided a lot of movies that I just knew I wasn't gonna like this year. So
yeah.
Most of what I saw was really good. I would say the biggest, the one that was better than I expected it to be, not because I thought it was going to be bad, just because I didn't know what to expect, was A Different Man, which is, again, kind of forgotten about at this point, and I really think it needs some exposure because it's really just a fascinating movie.
It's crazy. He did win, didn't he? But Such Man won the Golden Globe for A Different Man, which is nuts.
Did he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he won for the Golden Globe for A Different Man. Anyway, that's our list for our award show for this year. Hopefully, we'll pursue on the show next year. We'll do another one next year. It was a movie year that I was worried about when it started because of the strike, and I didn't know how that was going to affect everything that was coming out. But I thought it ended up being a really interesting movie year with some stuff that
much
I really
better
really
than
liked.
expected. Yeah, I mean, there were some real all-timers there.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with you on that. So a really, really good year. I'm looking forward to this year. I've seen my first movie of the year, and it was unfortunately Captain America: Brave New World, which I liked probably more than most people. But that means it was like a 2.5 star, for me.
I saw The Monkey, and if the rest of this year's movies can be as good as The Monkey, then this will be a really good year.
It's a good horror start to the year. I gotta say, I want to see The Monkey, Companion, Presence are all movies that I would like to see.
Yeah.
It's a pretty strong beginning for those type of movies, and we're about to hit like here comes some movies are about to come out, so we're coming to that time. But yeah, so next time we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming. I think that next week. I gotta look at my list now because this is actually like coming out the week that we're recording it, which is not something we do very often or at all or ever. So the award show is out today on this. This is the second. Next week is Air. Next week we got Air, I believe.
No, Live by Night.
Oh no, you're right. Live by Night. I have the old schedule. Live by Night is next week. So get ready for that one, guys. Fun. So we're covering the movies of Ben Affleck right now. If this might be the first episode people listen to. They might just be like, oh, it's the best of show. So we're covering the movies of Ben Affleck right now. We've covered the movies of Karyn Kusama and Joseph Kosinski, and we're going to be doing, after Ben Affleck, we're doing Joe Wright. And then we can announce today that after we do the movies of Joe Wright, we're going to be doing our tour director of the year, and that is going to be Peter Jackson. It's going to be the director.
We're chosen by our listeners.
Chosen by our listeners, yes. Peter Jackson. So we'll be kicking that off after our Joe Wright series.
Who made Meet the Feebles and like a couple other movies out.
Yeah, a couple of little movies.
Yeah. Oh, and The Lovely Bones.
Yes.
Because we've been talking about Saoirse Ronan a lot lately.
That's right. We get more Saoirse Ronan. We've been doing
and the Tooch.
And the
man.
Tooch. Oh yeah.
Kind of excited to see that.
That's more than a touch of the Tooch. That's a lot of the Tooch.
It's a very touchy Tooch.
Yeah, uncalled for, Nick. Uncalled for. So we'll be doing that as well. I'm really excited to talk about that. It's gonna be a fun series, for sure. And then, we'll go back to our more obscure sort of genre journeyman filmmakers after that. But thank you so much for sticking with us for this whole show on podcasting's biggest night. I hope you enjoyed the Oscars, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you to everybody who's listening. Until next time, be good to one another. Later.